Chapter 9:15. Ning Fan did not know that his action of entering the Nine Heavens Imperial Court had already attracted the attention of some great emperors. After pressing a finger on the broken stone door, Ning Fan went inside. What came into his sight was a sea of clouds that looked like raging waves. Above the sea of clouds, the forbidden power of flight was extremely strong. Even immortal emperors could not fly in this place. The sea of clouds did not have a physical body. One could not step on it. Once one steps on it, he would definitely fall from the clouds and it would be hard to tell whether he would survive or die. Above the sea of clouds, there were 12 ancient roads paved with bluestones. They were like 12 green dragons, moving in different directions towards the peak of the sea of clouds. Ning Fan was currently standing on one of the 12 ancient bluestone roads. Only by standing on the ancient road would he not fall from the sea of clouds. There were a total of 12 ancient roads leading to the second floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. On each of the ancient roads, there were 111 palaces. Only by choosing a road and passing through all the palaces on the road could one enter the second floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Ning Fan had already known about these things from the information given by venerated Miao Yen. The azure rain intent flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand and performed a hand seal, displaying the heaven-peering rain technique. His spirit sense turned into a drizzle, meandering upwards along the 12 ancient bluestone roads. His spirit sense scanned through each of the ancient bluestone roads, scanning through the first palace, the second palace, the 111th palace on each ancient road. The 111th palace was located at the peak of the Sea of Clouds in the first floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. To go further up, one would need to tear open the sky of the first floor to enter the second floor. Ning Fan's spirit sense turned into a drizzling rain technique, covering every corner of the first floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. He could sense that there were 31 other cultivators in the first floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court other than himself. Among these cultivators, there were human cultivators and demon cultivators. Some of them were sitting cross-legged on the ancient bluestone roads, quietly adjusting their breathing. There were also some who were trying to pass through the palaces in some palaces. Among these 31 cultivators, most of them were at the mid-shedding void realm. Only 4 of them were at the late-shedding void realm. Among them, Ning Fan did not find the 7th ancestor. There's no sign of the 7th ancestor in the first floor. With his strength, he must have already rushed to a higher level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Ning Fan tried to make the rain of spirit sense break through the sky of the first level and enter the second level. However, he realized that it was impossible. I can't sense the situation in the second level of the heaven fault. I wonder which level has the 7th ancestor reached. After withdrawing the rain technique, Ning Fan randomly chose a route and walked along the ancient path. His movement technique was extremely fast like a ghost. In just a few breaths, he arrived outside a palace. This palace was surrounded by layers of red palace walls. The plaque above the palace door was painted with the words First Palace in ancient celestial seal script. There were only 2 doors in the palace. Ning Fan had to enter from the front door and walk out from the back to reach the second palace. Ning Fan merely took a glance at the horizontal board and stepped into the palace. As soon as he entered the palace, he immediately felt an overwhelming pressure pressing down from the sky. The suppressive force was extremely strong. Ordinary shedding void early-stage cultivators were suppressed by the power of the celestial restriction. If they entered the palace, they would immediately be thrown out of the palace by the suppressive force. They wouldn't even have the right to enter the palace. Even a mid-shedding void cultivator would find it hard to walk under the suppressive force of the palace. Without the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they definitely wouldn't be able to walk out of this palace. Although Ning Fan didn't have the cultivation base of the shedding void, his cultivation base wasn't suppressed by the power of the celestial restriction either. His strength was astonishing. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of the suppressive force of the first palace. The only thing that surprised him was that the suppressive force in this palace actually caused the tribulation blood in his body to boil slightly and then calm down. Ignoring the suppressive force of the palace, Ning Fan walked forward quickly. His eyes wandered around the walls of the palace with an inquiring look. There was nothing in the palace except for some murals on the four walls. Due to the passage of time, those murals were severely weathered. They were incomplete, making it impossible to see the specific content of the murals. In those murals, the shadows of the palace doors of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court appeared many times. In those murals, there was also an old man who wore a beast-skin skirt and held a huge bone club in his hand. His upper body was bare and his muscles were strong. His hair was combed into countless braids and his body was covered with strange runes which looked like barbarian marks. Unknowingly, when Ning Fan saw the old man in the murals, the barbarian marks on his body had a hint of excitement. This strange feeling disappeared in a flash. Ning Fan halted his steps and looked inside his body. When he found that there were no changes to the barbarian marks in his body, he shook his head and continued to walk forward. That strange feeling never appeared again until he walked out of the first palace. Was it an illusion? Ning Fan pondered. After Ning Fan walked out of the first palace, an indistinct voice suddenly resounded in the murals. The voice was stiff and cold, as if it came from a corpse. There was no emotion in it. The chi of the tribulation blood. This kid is a true barbarian, the chi of the tribulation blood. This kid is a tribulation venerable of the upper world. This place is my temporary residence. One palace and one mark. This kid already has the first barbarian mark, there's no need for him to condense the first mark. Ning Fan left too quickly and did not hear the strange voice. His movement technique was extremely fast. As soon as he left the first palace, he immediately flashed past countless long stairs like a ghost and arrived at the second palace. Then, he entered it. In just the blink of an eye, Ning Fan had already left the second palace and entered the third palace. 10 breaths later, Ning Fan had already passed the 19th palace and entered the 20th palace. Another 10 breaths later, Ning Fan passed the 45th palace. Along the way, the four walls of each palace were painted with the same murals. In the beginning, Ning Fan would take a few glances at them, but in the end, he no longer looked at them and directly passed through the palace. The palace that he passed through would be filled with divine light for a moment. The divine light would only appear for a moment and then disappear. The ancient green stone path that Ning Fan chose was the third one out of the 12 ancient paths. On this ancient path, outside the 46th palace, there was a burly man in black armor sitting cross-legged in meditation. He was a mid-shedding void realm demon cultivator who belonged to the Black Crane clan. The 46th palace was like a threshold. The difficulty of breaking through it was far greater than the 45th palace. The burly man in black armor had tried several times, but he still couldn't pass through the 46th palace. On the contrary, he failed several times and suffered some injuries. He couldn't help but feel disheartened. The aura force of the 46th palace is almost twice as strong as the aura force of the previous palace. What a pity. I have just broken through the mid-shedding void realm 100,000 years ago. I can't be considered as a mid-shedding void realm expert. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to pass through this palace. Fortunately, I didn't come here empty-handed. Previously, when I passed the 23rd palace, I found a tuft of jade-wave demonic grass outside the palace. Its medicinal age has exceeded 2 million years. This demonic grass might not be a good thing to others, but I have a special cultivation method. This item is really good. The burly man in black armor was muttering to himself. Suddenly, his expression changed as he noticed that the 45th palace was bursting with divine light. Someone else has passed the 45th palace. Judging from this chi, it seems to be the chi of a human old monster. Before Ning Fan walked out of the 45th palace, a trace of the chi of a human cultivator had already spread out from the palace. The burly man's heart sank when he sensed the trace of human chi. He quickly rose to his feet and took out a magic treasure to protect himself. His expression was tense. He had failed to pass the palace several times and his body was already covered with injuries. If he were to fight with the intruder, the situation would be disadvantageous to him. Judging from the chi of this person, he should be the same as me, a mid-shell void cultivator. The human race and the demon race have been holding grudges against each other for a long time. If I encounter him here and he sees that I'm injured, there's no reason for him to forgive me. He will certainly attack me. This is troublesome. I wonder if I can survive today. The burly man in black armor was feeling nervous. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. He looked down at the sea of clouds and saw a ghost-faced, silver-haired, white-robed figure slowly walking out of the 45th palace. Ning Fan's pace didn't seem to be fast, but in a flash, he left an afterimage on the spot. In the next moment, he appeared behind the burly man in black armor like a ghost. The burly man felt a chill down his spine. He couldn't see how Ning Fan got to his back. There was only one explanation for his inability to see through Ning Fan's movement technique. Ning Fan's strength was far beyond his. Perhaps, Ning Fan's strength was already close to the late shell void cultivator. Ghost-faced and silver-haired. He's the person that old ancestor poisonous dragon wants to kill. If I fight with this person, my chances of winning are slim. But if I don't fight, I will certainly be killed by this person. Do I have no choice but to fight? The burly man in black armor gritted his teeth and turned around abruptly. He activated his magic treasure, wanting to attack Ning Fan. However, as soon as he turned around, he was greatly surprised. He saw that Ning Fan didn't have the intention to fight him at all. He directly entered the 46th palace and Ning Fan's shadow was nowhere to be seen. Ning Fan's strength was obviously much stronger than him, but he didn't have the intention to kill him and just left. Why didn't he kill me? With the hatred between the human race and the demon race, what reason does he have to let me go? The burly man in black armor was puzzled. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. In less than a breath's time after Ning Fan entered the 46th palace, the 46th palace suddenly emitted a sky-piercing divine light. The appearance of the divine light meant that Ning Fan had passed the 46th palace. 1 breath's time. This person actually only used 1 breath's time to pass the 46th palace. I've seen old Monster High of the Sea Snake Clan pass the 46th palace. That old Monster High was a late shell void cultivator. It took him the time for 3 incense sticks to burn to pass this palace. This person is definitely not a mid-shell void cultivator. This person. Could he be old Monster Swan Nyen? After passing the 46th palace, Ning Fan did not immediately proceed to the 47th palace. His eyes were filled with a hint of doubt. This doubt was not because of the burly man in black armor but because of the 46th palace. At the moment when he passed the 46th palace, Ning Fan clearly felt the barbarian marks in his body emitting waves of heat. This time, the feeling was incomparably clear. Ning Fan was sure that it wasn't an illusion. He inspected his body and didn't find any unusual changes. After a moment of silence, he entered the 47th palace again. 10 breaths later, the 59th palace emitted a sky-piercing divine light and Ning Fan walked out from it. Another 10 breaths later, he passed the 67th palace and slowly walked out. Another 20 breaths later, he reached the 75th palace. The further he went, the stronger the aura force of the palace became. Ning Fan's speed of passing the palace unconsciously slowed down. He no longer pursued speed blindly. Even so, Ning Fan did not encounter any obstacles along the way. It didn't take him much time to reach the 96th palace. Outside the 96th palace, there was an old demon in blue robes meditating. His surname was High and people called him Old Monster High. He was born in the Sea Snake Clan and had a late shell void cultivation base. Seeing Ning Fan slowly approaching him, Old Monster High narrowed his snake eyes and glanced at Ning Fan. His eyes flickered and then he closed his eyes again. Ghost-faced silver hair. Could this person be the person that old ancestor poisonous dragon wants to kill? He's just a mid-shell void cultivator. It's not worth mentioning. If it wasn't because of my injuries, I would only need 3 breaths to kill him. Forget it. Consider this kid lucky. My injuries haven't stabilized yet and it's not suitable for me to use my demon power. I'll let him live for a while longer. Old Monster High ignored Ning Fan's arrival and continued to meditate with his legs crossed. His attitude was almost arrogant. Wasn't he afraid that Ning Fan would launch a sneak attack on him? Of course, he wasn't afraid. If this kid dares to attack me, I can still kill him within 6 breaths even if I have to worsen my injuries. If this kid is timid and doesn't dare to attack me, I don't mind killing him after my injuries have stabilized. Old Monster High thought arrogantly. Ning Fan acted as if he did not see Old Monster High. He slowly walked past him and entered the 96th palace. Seeing that Ning Fan did not attack him but chose to enter the palace, Old Monster High opened his eyes and let out a strange laugh. He shook his head and muttered to himself. He doesn't dare to attack me, huh? This kid is really timid. As soon as Old Monster High's voice fell, he suddenly opened his eyes in disbelief and looked at the 96th palace. In just 3 breaths after Ning Fan entered the palace emitted a dazzling divine light. 3 breaths. This kid only used 3 breaths to pass through the 96th palace. What cultivation base does he have? Peak Shell Void Realm? No. Even a Peak Shell Void Realm expert wouldn't be as calm as him. Could it be the Thought Fragmentation Realm? Old Monster High could no longer maintain his composure. He stood up abruptly and dashed towards the direction of the 95th palace without daring to look at the 96th palace anymore. He was afraid that Ning Fan would return to where he came from after passing the 96th palace and attack him. Thus, he did not dare to stay in this place any longer. No matter how conceited Old Monster High was, he did not think that he would be a match for the Thought Fragmentation Old Monster. Currently, his injuries had yet to fully recover. If Ning Fan returns to where he came from to kill him, how could he withstand it? He might not even have the slightest chance of survival. After passing the 96th palace, the doubts in Ning Fan's eyes were slightly reduced. It was as if he had confirmed something. At the moment when he passed the 96th palace, the barbarian marks in his body emitted a fiery feeling again, 4696. These 2 numbers reminded Ning Fan of the scene when his barbarian marks broke through to the 46th and 96th lines and the barbarian blood was continuously produced in his body, 46, 96,156. Ning Fan muttered these 3 numbers in his heart. His eyes flickered and he walked towards the 97th palace. He did not plan to pay attention to Old Monster High who was running away. 156 meant that when the number of his barbarian marks increased to 156, the barbarian blood would be produced in his body again. He seemed to have some kind of speculation in his heart but he could not confirm it yet. The 97th palace was quickly passed by Ning Fan. Then, it was the 98th palace, the 99th palace, the 100th palace. After 100 breaths, Ning Fan arrived at the 111th palace and passed it. After walking out of the palace, Ning Fan arrived at the peak of the Sea of Clouds on the 1st floor of the Heaven Imperial Court and looked up at the Dome of the Heavens. If he goes further up, it would be the 2nd floor of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. As long as he could tear the sky apart, he would be able to enter the 2nd floor of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. Others would naturally need to tear the sky apart in order to enter the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. However, before Ning Fan could lift his hand to tear the sky apart, a cold and inexperienced voice suddenly resounded from the peak of the Sea of Clouds. Only Ning Fan could hear that voice. Even though it sounded a little cold, it did not carry any hostility. You are, a true member of my clan. You are, an orthodox barbarian, you have already condensed 224 barbarian marks. Within the first floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. You won't be able to obtain any benefits. Additionally, I will bestow upon you 10 drops of royal barbarian blood. Just as the voice fell, a blood-red vortex suddenly appeared at the peak of the sea of clouds. 10 drops of translucent black and red blood flew out of the vortex and directly flew to Ning Fan's side before disappearing into his body. Ning Fan's expression immediately changed. Those 10 drops of blood were actually the bloodline of the royal barbarian race. As soon as the 10 drops of barbarian blood entered his body, they were immediately devoured by the tribulation blood in his body in a domineering manner. The grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood had already reached the 9-star remnant blood. The day when it would break through to the true blood realm was originally still far away. After devouring the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood, the grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood began to skyrocket. Even though it had yet to break through to the true blood realm, it had improved greatly from the base of the 9-star remnant blood realm. Come, my clan member. Come to the top floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. I will wait for you. The blood-red whirlpool gradually disappeared and the sea of clouds returned to its original state. The voice also gradually disappeared. Before Ning Fan could react, a loud rumbling sound came from beneath his feet. A gigantic formation appeared on the ancient bluestone path. The formation flashed and Ning Fan directly disappeared from the first floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. He appeared at the entrance of the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. Others would need to tear open the sky of the first floor in order to enter the second floor. However, Ning Fan did not have to do that. Thus, he received special treatment. Who exactly is the owner of that voice? Why did he give me 10 drops of royal barbarian blood? That voice and chi are very unfamiliar. It's different from any of the barbarian ancestors. It's definitely not a barbarian ancestor. Who is that person? There were a total of 24 ancient bluestone paths on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. All of them led to the third floor. There were a total of 47 cultivators on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. Most of them were at the late shedding void realm and only a few of them were at the peak shedding void realm. Ning Fan's arrival did not tear open the sky. Thus, he did not make too much noise. His arrival was completely silent. No one noticed Ning Fan's arrival until a series of divine lights suddenly shone from one of the ancient bluestone paths. There were palaces that were continuously being broken through. Only then did it finally attract the attention of the group of old monsters. There were a total of 24 ancient bluestone paths on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. The path that Ning Fan was walking on was the 11th one. Other than Ning Fan, there were no other humans or demons on this path. Thus, no one would disturb Ning Fan's progress. The aura force of the palaces on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court was extremely strong. It was incomparable to the first floor. On this floor, even a late shedding calm old monster would find it extremely difficult to break through the palaces. However, to Ning Fan, it was still not too difficult. Ning Fan only used 5 breaths to break through the first palace of the second floor. After that, he would break through a palace every 5 breaths. Wherever he passed by, there would be palaces emitting divine lights. The expressions of the other old monsters on the ancient roads changed when they noticed the divine lights coming from Ning Fan's direction. Hiss! On the 11th ancient road, there is someone breaking through a palace every 5 breaths. 5 breaths. What kind of speed is this? Who is this person? Could he be a thought-breaking expert? I can't see clearly. The mist here is too strong to block spirit sense. If we are not on the same ancient road, we won't be able to see what is happening there. The only thing we can see is this divine light that can pierce through the clouds. This thought-breaking senior seems to have paused. He used 10 breaths to break through the 45th palace. At the location of the 45th palace, Ning Fan slowed down his pace. His eyes flickered as he stepped into the palace. 46, 96, then 156, 156 minus 111, the result is 45. Ning Fan muttered. After entering the 45th palace, his barbarian mark once again emitted a fiery feeling. His eyes immediately turned solemn, as if the speculation in his heart was confirmed. As expected, Ning Fan didn't say anything else. He only stayed in the 45th palace for a while before he walked out of it and continued to move forward. He continued to move forward. None of the palaces in front of him could make his barbarian mark emit a slight fiery feeling. 46th palace, 47th palace, 48th palace, 49th palace, it didn't take Ning Fan a long time to break through the 111th palace. After passing through the 111th palace, Ning Fan reached the peak of the Sea of Clouds on the second floor of the Heavenly Tower. When he arrived at this place, another blood-red whirlpool appeared and 10 drops of royal barbarian blood flew out from it. The second floor. You didn't obtain any benefits. I will give you 10 drops of royal barbarian blood. Come, my clansmen. Come to the top of the Heavenly Tower. I'll be waiting for you, that voice resounded once again. This time, before the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood flew into his body and the blood-red whirlpool disappeared from the peak of the Sea of Clouds, Ning Fan directly activated the reverse spirit technique. Using the technique, he sensed the blood-red whirlpool in reverse. He could vaguely feel that the person who gave him the royal barbarian blood didn't mean him any harm. However, with his cautiousness, he wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't find out the other party's identity. Using the reverse perception of the reverse spirit technique, he sent a trace of his spirit sense into the whirlpool and directly arrived at the highest point of the 9 heavens imperial court. There stood a giant gate that was filled with lifeless chi. A gray moon hung in the sky. The ground within 1,000 zhang of the giant gate was littered with broken stones and many stone statues. That giant gate should be the legendary entrance to the heavenly desolate ancient realm. Those stone statues were of cultivators and strange beasts. Some of them had been weathered and damaged while some of them were still intact. There were more than 1,000 of these stone statues. Some of their expressions were filled with fear while some were filled with resentment. Behind the countless stone statues, there was a giant stone throne that had been weathered and cracked. On the throne, there was also a stone statue sitting on it. Judging from the appearance of the stone statue, it was an old man with a bare upper body. His lower body was wrapped in an animal skin skirt. His hair was tied into countless braids and his body was covered with petrified barbarian marks. Ning Fan vaguely felt that the appearance of the old man was familiar. Then, he recalled that he had seen it on the murals in various palaces. The chi on the old man's body was clearly the same as that of the blood-red whirlpool. The one who gave Ning Fan the royal barbarian blood was this stone statue. Is this the stone statue that repeatedly gave me the royal barbarian blood? Ning Fan's eyes flickered slightly. Just as he was about to withdraw his trace of spirit sense, an unprecedented sense of crisis suddenly rose in his heart. Gusts of grey wind suddenly appeared in this place. When the grey wind blew past, the trace of spirit sense that Ning Fan had spread to the highest point of the heaven's imperial court was directly wiped out. Ning Fan made a prompt decision and cut off the connection with that trace of spirit sense. He no longer dared to probe the situation at the highest point of the heaven's imperial court. Even though he acted quickly, a trace of grey still appeared in his sea of consciousness. That grey color made Ning Fan's scalp go numb. Once it entered Ning Fan's body, it immediately spread crazily, causing Ning Fan's body to stiffen and petrify bit by bit. Ning Fan's eyes became even more solemn. He could sense a trace of samsara power from the grey chi in his sea of consciousness. This kind of petrification could not be stopped by ordinary divine abilities. Only the samsara power or the power of the tribulation blood that existed on the same level as the samsara power could stop it, disperse. Ning Fan shouted coldly and directly displayed the power of the tribulation blood in his body. A scarlet-red light immediately covered his entire body. When the red light swept across, the trace of gray qi in his body was slowly wiped out. Chapter 9:16. There was only a trace of gray qi that invaded Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Under the suppression of the Jie blood, it was quickly wiped out. The stiffness in his body gradually disappeared and the parts that were petrified gradually returned to normal. Seeing this, Ning Fan's expression softened and he quietly looked at the sea of clouds above his head. Above the sea of clouds, the blood-red vortex was disappearing bit by bit. Ning Fan did not continue to use the reverse spirit technique. Instead, he sensed the scenery on the other side of the vortex. The 10 drops of royal barbarian blood that the stone statue bestowed had already flown into Ning Fan's body and were devoured by the Jie blood in a domineering manner. After devouring the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood, the level of Ning Fan's Jie blood increased by a large margin. However, there was still a huge gap between him and the true blood realm. Regarding the changes of the Jie blood in his body, Ning Fan did not say anything about it. His expression was still a little solemn. His mind was still recalling the scene that he saw when he used the reverse spirit technique. Giant gate. Stone statue. Gray moon. What I saw using the reverse spirit technique is probably the entrance of the heavenly desolate ancient realm that the human race and demon race have been plotting for many years. The entrance of the heavenly desolate ancient realm is at the highest point of the heavenly imperial court. That place is filled with grey wind that contains the power of samsara. It gives me an extremely dangerous feeling. This place doesn't seem to be a good place. Also, I don't know the identity of that old man with the stone statue. Why did he call me the Orthodox barbarian and why did he give me 20 drops of royal barbarian blood? Moreover, although it was just a quick glance, I clearly sensed a trace of life force that was deeply hidden in the body of that old man. Was he also turned into a stone statue because of the grey qi? Is he not dead yet? He asked me to go to the highest point of the heavenly imperial court to see him. Should I go? Ning Fan's thoughts raced. After a while, he shook his head. He came to the 9 heavenly imperial court to take back the souls of the 1 million barbarians from the hands of the 7th ancestor. He did not want to care about other things for the time being. He also did not want to see that old man who had turned into a stone statue. The ancient green stone path under his feet lit up with circles of light of formations. In the next moment, Ning Fan's figure disappeared from the 2nd level and entered the 3rd level of the heavenly imperial court. At the entrance of the 3rd level of the heavenly imperial court, there were 6 demon cultivators sitting cross-legged. There were 7 to 8 corpses of human cultivators lying on the ground. When Ning Fan's figure appeared at the entrance of the 3rd floor, the 6 demon cultivators suddenly rose to their feet. All of them erupted with the aura force of the peak-shedding void realm. The 6 demon cultivators recognized Ning Fan's human qi. Their eyes flashed with ferocious light. However, there were also traces of doubt in their eyes. That's weird. This person didn't tear open the sky of the 2nd level. How did he enter the 3rd level of the heaven fault? Forget it. No matter how this person entered the 3rd level, I'll kill him first. Patriarch Poisonous Dragon ordered us to stay here and kill the Luo clan that enters this place. This kid seems to be only at the middle stage of void shedding, so it won't be difficult to kill him. And this kid had silver hair and a ghost face. He was the person that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon had placed a bounty on. Kill him and you can obtain an Emperor-grade embryonic pill from the clan. When they thought of the generous reward of the Emperor-grade embryonic pill, the hearts of the 6 demon cultivators raced. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as if they were looking at a fat sheep. The 6 demon cultivators had stayed behind because they were under orders to kill the humans that had fallen from the sky. Seeing that Ning Fan's cultivation base was not high, the 6 demon cultivators naturally had the intention to kill him. When they saw that Ning Fan was the person that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon had placed a bounty on, they naturally had to kill him. Each of the 6 demon cultivators carried a demon sword case on their back. The sword chi inside the case was towering. As soon as Ning Fan appeared, before he could see the scenery in front of him clearly, 2 demon cultivators, one tall and one skinny, had already taken a step forward. At the same time, they formed a hand seal and shouted. Ji Water Demon Sword, slash. Han Valley Demon Sword, slash. Immediately, the sword cases on the backs of the 2 demons let out a sonorous and forceful sword cry. Then, 2 rays of sword light, one purple and one red, flew out of the sword cases with a chi sound and slashed towards Ning Fan's left and right. The other 4 demon cultivators moved and blocked Ning Fan's 4 sides. They did not attack Ning Fan, but they blocked all of his escape routes. They did not intend to give Ning Fan any chance to escape. The 6 demons had a tacit understanding with each other. They had already joined hands to kill many shedding Void Realm humans. Any one of them was not a weakling among those at the peak shedding Void Realm. From their point of view, Ning Fan, who was just at the mid-shedding Void Realm, could be killed with 90% certainty with 2 of them attacking him at the same time. The bounty for the Emperor-grade embryonic pill was just within their reach. Unfortunately, the 6 demons had underestimated Ning Fan's strength. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. Along his journey, he had encountered many demon cultivators, but he did not kill them. However, it did not mean that he was soft-hearted and would not kill them. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. Since these few demon cultivators had come to seek death, he naturally would not show them any mercy. Bang! Ning Fan's body suddenly erupted with red light that soared into the sky. That red light then turned into 2 scarlet giant hands that directly grabbed the 2 demon swords. The grade of the 2 demon swords was not ordinary. They were 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven Flying Swords. In terms of grade, they were slightly higher than Ning Fan's 4-minute swords. However, under the grasp of the giant red hand, the 2 swords actually let out a loud bang and were forcefully shattered into powder by the force of that grasp. 1 claw and the 2 swords were destroyed. The 2 peak-shedding Void Realm demon cultivators who cultivated with the 2 swords immediately coughed out blood and retreated. When they looked at Ning Fan again, their eyes were filled with astonishment. Not only the 2 of them, the other 4 demons were also greatly astonished. Being able to destroy 2 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven demon swords in a single strike was definitely not something that a mid-shedding Void Realm cultivator could possess. What kind of ability is that red light? It can actually destroy the 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven demon swords in a single strike. This person is definitely not a mid-shedding Void Realm cultivator. Even a peak-shedding Void Realm cultivator would have a hard time withstanding our joint attack. However, this person managed to break it in a single strike. Even if he is not a thought-fragmenting old monster, he must be a peak-shedding Void Realm cultivator who has half a step into the thought-fragmenting realm. Let's attack together and kill this young man. Don't hold back anymore. The 6 demons' expressions were solemn. As they moved, they changed their positions. From their positions, they seemed to be in line with the formation. They had vaguely surrounded Ning Fan at the center of the formation. The cold light in Ning Fan's eyes intensified. He would certainly not give the 6 demons the chance to set up the formation. The Grand Firmament Tribulation Spirit at the 1-star True Blood realm was considered as having minor accomplishment in Tribulation Blood. With just the strength of his bloodline, he was already invincible in the Shedding Void realm. After devouring 20 drops of Royal Barbarian blood, even though Ning Fan's Tribulation Blood had yet to break through to the True Blood realm, it was much stronger than before. Currently, Ning Fan might not necessarily lose to a late Shedding Void realm cultivator just by relying on the might of his Tribulation Blood. In the desolate land which was suppressed by the power of the Forbidden Immortal realm, Ning Fan could even put up a fight against a late thought-fragmenting Void realm cultivator. Why would he be afraid of a few peak-shedding Void Realm cultivators? Devour. A red light flashed in Ningfan's eyes. At this moment, tribulation clouds covered heaven and earth densely. The red light fell like lightning. It was as if the end of the world was coming. Rumbling sounds echoed incessantly, causing the sea of clouds in the area to tumble. He flicked his sleeves. The red light of the tribulation sense around him immediately swept out like a violent gust of wind. It turned into 6 rays of scarlet finger light and pointed at each of the 6 demons. The speed of the finger light was too fast. It was so fast that the 6 demons did not have the time to defend themselves. The finger light had already reached their eyes. Their spiritual equipment and demon armors were crushed by the finger light and it penetrated their bodies. As soon as the finger light penetrated their bodies, the 6 demons immediately coughed out blood and retreated. Their bodies even began to feel stiff. Every time they took a step back, the stiffness would increase. When they took the 7th step back, they suddenly realized that they could no longer take another step back. At this moment, all of them had lost control of their bodies. Due to the destruction of the red light of the tribulation sense in their bodies, they were unable to move at all. It was as if their bodies no longer belonged to them. Even though their consciousness still existed, they could not move their fingers at all. As soon as they looked inside their bodies, they immediately realized that their bodies had been controlled by the scarlet evil red light, depriving them of the right to control their bodies. The red light was not only eroding their consciousness. As time passed, the 6 demons could no longer remain clear-headed. Their eyes became bloodthirsty and violent. Gradually, there was an urge and a thirst in their hearts. They wanted to kill each other, to disown their own kin, and to kill their own kind. They had already gone mad. What is this divine ability, but? I'm afraid, in the end, the consciousness of the 6 demon cultivators was completely eroded by the power of the tribulation sense. They had been affected by Ningfan's tribulation sense technique and turned into his loyal servants, pure killing machines. Unfortunately, Ningfan did not need such loyal servants. After the 6 of them had fallen into oblivion, Ningfan glanced at them coldly. He raised his hand and took out the memory-severing Dao sword, piercing through their dantian and killing their demon souls. After casually keeping the storage pouches and demon swords of the 6 demons, Ningfan glanced at the ancient bluestone paths and chose one of them before stepping into it. There were a total of 36 ancient bluestone paths on the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. All of them led to the 4th floor. The path that Ningfan took was the 19th one. No one had ever taken this path before. He used a very short amount of time to kill the 6 demons. However, the disturbance he caused was huge. In the 3rd floor, there were still 13 early thought fragmentation realm old monsters who were trying to break through the palace. They more or less sensed the fluctuations caused by Ningfan killing the 6 demons. However, because the clouds and mist were too thick and they were too far away, they could not find out what was happening at the entrance. Judging by the momentum of the battle, could it be that there are thought fragmentation realm old monsters fighting here? Mounz was sitting cross-legged on the ground outside the 84th palace on the 7th ancient path. He was trying his best to recover his magic power. He had quite a lot of injuries on his body. Old ancestor Jinhua was sitting cross-legged on the ground outside the 84th palace on the 9th ancient path. He had quite a lot of injuries on his body and was recuperating. Old ancestor Jinhua was slightly shocked and he sensed the terrifying fluctuations coming from the entrance. However, he did not say anything. The 11th ancient path, the 12th ancient path, the 14th ancient path. Each of the thought fragmentation realm old monsters noticed the fluctuations caused by Ningfan's divine ability. Their expressions changed. Most of the early thought fragmentation realm old monsters stopped at the 84th palace. It was actually difficult for them to break through this palace with their cultivation base. Are the 6 demons of Si Shui all dead? Humph. I wonder which human thought fragmentation realm old monster couldn't bear to see the 6 demons killing the human race that had fallen from the sky. That's why he finally attacked them. On the 21st ancient path, a snake-haired old man noticed that the 6 life tablets in his storage pouch had shattered. His expression darkened. This snake-haired old man's face was covered with snake scales. His chi was extremely cold. He was born in the heaven-devouring Python clan, a great true spirit clan. He was extremely strong. Among those at the early thought fragmentation realm, he rarely met a worthy opponent. Among the 6 demons, one of them cultivated a cultivation method that was very useful to me. I originally planned to nurture this demon into a python cauldron. However, I didn't expect that this demon would be killed by a human old monster. Humph. That human old monster who killed the 6 demons has stepped onto the 19th ancient path. Consider himself lucky. If he steps onto this ancient path of mine, I will certainly teach him a painful lesson. The snake-haired old man let out a cold humph and entered the 84th palace in a flash. A few breaths later, the snake-haired old man let out a muffled groan and flew out of the palace while spurting out blood. His expression was vaguely filled with unwillingness. Damn it. The aura force of the 84th palace is actually a few times stronger than the 83rd palace. Without a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivation base, I really can't pass through it. I don't believe it. The snake-haired old man adjusted his breathing and entered the 84th palace again. A moment later, he spurted out blood and flew out of the palace again. I can't pass through it. He sighed dejectedly. Suddenly, he noticed something and was slightly stunned. That human old monster who killed the 6 demons has just reached the 3rd palace and he can't go any further. The snake-haired old man's spirit sense vaguely locked onto the 19th ancient path and Ning Fan's direction. He noticed that Ning Fan had already entered the 3rd palace for more than 10 breaths. However, the 3rd palace had yet to emit the divine light of passing through. Why didn't he stop at the 4th palace? The snake-haired old man muttered to himself. The 3rd level of the heavenly fault was obviously different from the 2nd level. This difference was specifically aimed at Ning Fan. Ning Fan walked along the 19th ancient path and passed through the 1st palace and the 2nd palace. These 2 palaces were nothing special to him. However, when he entered the 3rd palace of the 3rd level, he immediately noticed the changes of the barbarian marks in his body. There were originally only 224 barbarian marks in his body. However, when he reached the 3rd palace of the 3rd level, his body vaguely formed the 225th barbarian mark. Passing through the palaces of the 9 heavens imperial court can actually increase the number of barbarian marks. Ning Fan's eyes flashed as if he was more certain of something. When the number of barbarian marks reached 46, 96 and 156, a new barbarian blood would be born in Ning Fan's body. In the 9 heavens imperial court, the aura force of the palaces would increase when he reached the 46th and 96th palaces. In the 45th palace of the 2nd level, the aura force of the palace would also increase. If one were to calculate carefully, the 45th palace of the 2nd level of the heavenly fault was exactly the 156th palace that Ning Fan had passed through. The 3rd palace of the 3rd level was the 225th palace that Ning Fan had passed through. There was no increase in the number of barbarian marks in the 224 palaces that Ning Fan had passed through. However, there was an increase in the number of barbarian marks here. Previously, I guessed that the 9 heavens imperial court is related to the cultivation of the barbarian marks of the barbarian summoning technique. Now, it seems like my guess is correct. Ning Fan's eyes flashed and he walked out of the 3rd palace. Immediately, the 3rd palace emitted a towering divine light. With a sway of his body, he entered the 4th palace. Just like the 4th palace, his eyes narrowed. The aura force of the 4th palace was a few times stronger than that of the 3rd palace. Without an early thought fragmentation realm cultivation base, one would definitely be sent out by the aura force of the palace. The fourth palace is the 226th palace that I have passed through. In this palace, the aura force of the palace has obviously increased. Ning Fan walked forward step by step while withstanding the pressure that was as heavy as a mountain. Along the way, he passed through the palaces with a relaxed expression. However, when he reached this place, he finally felt that every step was difficult. In the fourth palace, Ning Fan spent nearly 100 breaths to pass through the aura force. The moment he passed through the fourth palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body had reached 226. Barbarian blood was produced in his body once again. 46, 96,156. After that, it's 226. I seem to have found a pattern. The next time I produce barbarian blood, will the number of barbarian marks be 306? 306 should correspond to the 84th palace of the third floor. The barbarian blood that was constantly being produced in his body was being devoured by the Jia blood in a domineering manner. The level of the Jia blood increased once again. He was even closer to breaking through to the one-star true blood. As the level of the Jia blood increased slightly, the aura force of the palace seemed to have lessened. Ning Fan's footsteps became lighter. The fifth palace, the sixth palace, the seventh palace. Ning Fan kept advancing. As the aura force of the palaces continued to increase, he could only pass through one palace every 20 breaths. Each time he passed through a palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body would increase by 1. When he passed through the 78th palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body had reached 300. In the 78th palace, Ning Fan welcomed the third tribulation of becoming the young barbarian minister. In the blink of an eye, his skin and flesh began to wither. The life force in his body was being devoured by the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. This kind of devouring was different from the backlash of the barbarian marks. It was no longer up to the barbarian marks. In order to pass the third tribulation, the amount of life force needed was much greater than the previous two. If Ning Fan couldn't pass the third tribulation, his life force would be exhausted and he would die. However, if Ning Fan passes the third tribulation, he would have 300 barbarian marks and awaken the bloodline of the barbarian ancestor. Then, he would become the young barbarian minister, a barbarian cultivator with ancestral bloodline. The arrival of the tribulation was silent. The thought-breaking old monsters on the third floor naturally did not notice the arrival of the tribulation. However, someone sensed the chi of this place. The fourth ancestor's expression changed drastically in the 95th palace of the sixth floor. He sensed the chi of the tribulation coming from the heavenly imperial court. The 17th palace of the seventh floor. The second ancestor was about to pass through this palace. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked down, as if he had discovered something extremely shocking. The 49th palace of the seventh floor. The first ancestor protected himself with the bone sword and walked towards the other side of the palace while withstanding the heavy aura force. At the moment when Ning Fan's tribulation descended, the first ancestor took out a bronze mirror and saw Ning Fan's ghostly face and silver-haired appearance. Impossible. Even if he is the great firmament tribulation spirit, it's impossible for him to trigger the third tribulation. Other than the barbarian race, there shouldn't be any other foreign race that is qualified to trigger the third tribulation. It's impossible for cultivators who aren't from the barbarian race to obtain the recognition of the 12 barbarian gods. It's also impossible for them to trigger the third tribulation. What kind of ability does this young man have to trigger the third tribulation? Could it be that his true identity is a barbarian? He's not a human. None of the 3 barbarian ancestors expected Ning Fan to trigger the third tribulation. Even the 5th ancestor who planted the barbarian summoning technique on Ning Fan did not expect that he would trigger the third tribulation one day. Only barbarians could use the barbarian summoning technique to obtain the recognition of the barbarian gods and trigger the third tribulation. This rule was set by the 12 barbarian gods at the same time. The barbarian gods were the gods that all barbarians including the first ancestor worshipped. They were the real ancestors who imitated the tribulation blood and created the barbarian bloodline. As a matter of fact, the ancient savage region that was ruled by the Fan family was just a branch of the barbarian race. Under the rule of the great firmament tribulation spirit, there were many barbarian tribes like the Fan family. They were the descendants of the 12 barbarian gods. I didn't expect that the barbarian mark that the fifth ancestor planted in this young man's body would trigger the third tribulation and become his fortune. If this young man successfully passes the third tribulation, his body will produce a drop of ancestor realm barbarian blood. Can this young man pass the third tribulation? If he does. The first ancestor's expression of shock disappeared and the corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Forget it. It's good if this young man can break through the ancestor realm barbarian bloodline. At that time, he won't only be useful to us, the barbarian ancestors, to heal our wounds. He can be of greater use. For example, we can offer him to the Lord who is sleeping on the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court, the 15th palace on the 8th floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. The seventh ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, walked forward while withstanding the pressure. Just like the other 3 barbarian ancestors, he also sensed the tribulation in Ning Fan's body. However, he was not as surprised as the other 3 and was too lazy to pay attention to Ning Fan. His expression was still blank and numb, like a machine that only knew how to complete a task. He had overcome all obstacles along the way just to ascend to the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court because his true self had given him a task there. My name is Fan Ma Kong. I am the 7th barbarian ancestor. On the day of my death, I borrowed the power of the karma beast that I obtained from killing the tribulation venerables of the upper world and sent my will into the illusory world to form my true self. I tried to control the fate of the arbiter of fate. My memories are very vague. I can't remember many things clearly. Most of my memories have been taken away by my true self. I have a task that my true self has given me. I must ascend to the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court and plant this goo in the body of the 9th barbarian god. I want to turn the 9th barbarian god into my 3rd clone. The 7th ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, moved forward with numb eyes. He carried a small bottle which contained a goo. It was stolen by his true self from the Goo tribe of the Southern clan in the Eastern Heaven Immortal world. He also had a banner with him. Inside the banner were the souls of the 1 million barbarians that Ning Fan had saved in the past. There were also countless barbarian souls with blank eyes. Most of them were barbarians who had died in the blood sacrifice. These souls were collected by him using the soul summoning technique. They were the catalyst to activate the mysterious goo poison. Fan Ma Kong's eyes were blank. He did not expect that his action of collecting the barbarian souls would attract an ominous star that had already entered the 9 heavens imperial court and was chasing after him. His intelligence was very low. He only knew that his instinct was to complete the task given to him by his true self. He would not ask about things that were unrelated to the task. On the 3rd level of the Heaven Imperial Court, in the 84th palace on the 21st ancient path, the snake-haired old man failed again. He flew out of the palace while coughing out blood. This was the 15th time that he had failed in the 84th palace. Can I really not pass it? I'm already familiar with the distribution of the aura force in this palace. If I use some tricks, I might be able to. Just as the snake-haired old man was thinking about a plan to pass this palace, his expression suddenly changed. Dark clouds suddenly appeared in the direction of the 19th ancient path. The dark clouds were completely different from the sea of clouds that was enshrouded in white mist. It gave the snake-haired old man an extremely uneasy feeling. Within the dense dark clouds, a voice came from afar. It was cold and indifferent, sending chills down the spines of those who heard it. Sha Gu. The dark clouds were released by Ning Fan's divine ability. The dark clouds were the phenomenon triggered by the Fu Li clan's most powerful divine ability, the returning ruin finger. Ning Fan needed a large amount of life force to pass the 3rd trial for his barbarian mark to devour. His own life force was not enough for the barbarian mark to devour. Thus, he could only obtain it from the outside world. The cultivator who was closest to him was the snake-haired old man who was on the 21st ancient path. This person had been locking Ning Fan's spirit sense with hidden hostility. This hostility did not escape Ning Fan's eyes. Thus, when Ning Fan needed life force the most, he directly chose to seize it from this person. Dark clouds covered the entire sky from the direction of the 19th ancient path. Suddenly, a gigantic vortex appeared in the center of the dark clouds. Inside the vortex, the shadow of a black-robed Ning Fan appeared. He suddenly descended in the direction of the snake-haired old man and said coldly, "Give me the life force in your body. This is your punishment for showing hostility to me. Go wash up and sleep." Chapter 9:17. Give me the life force in your body. This is your punishment for showing hostility towards me. The black-robed Ning Fan's tone was extremely domineering. As soon as he landed on the ancient green stone path, he immediately walked towards the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man was initially feeling a little uneasy. However, when he sensed the chi of Ning Fan's cultivation base, his heart was immediately relieved. He narrowed his eyes and said with a cold smile, "You want me to give you the life force in my body? Humph! How arrogant! Junior! If I'm not mistaken, your cultivation base should only be at the mid-shedding void realm before you were suppressed by the forbidden immortal power, right? How dare a junior like you speak arrogantly to me and try to seize the life force in my body? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. According to my rules, since you spoke rudely to me, you must atone for it with your death. I won't kill you with my own hands. Just commit suicide so that you won't be humiliated in my hands." As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the sky with the temperament of a senior expert. He did not put Ning Fan who was approaching him in his eyes at all. From the snake-haired old man's point of view, it was already merciful of him to give Ning Fan the chance to commit suicide after Ning Fan had spoken arrogantly to him. If Ning Fan refuses to commit suicide obediently, I don't mind killing this junior shedding void realm with my own hands. Ning Fan ignored the snake-haired old man and continued walking towards him. Seeing that Ning Fan was unwilling to commit suicide, the snake-haired old man opened his eyes impatiently and snorted. "Stubborn fool! Since you refuse to commit suicide, I will send you to hell with my own hands. Let me show you the terror of a thought-breaking realm cultivator." Dao Sense Technique, Green Flood Dragon Transformation into Scissors. The snake-haired old man suddenly put his hands together. Immediately, two gigantic shadows of green flood dragons intertwined with each other appeared between heaven and earth. It was the Tao image that he had cultivated for many years. The Tao image shone brightly. The two entangled dragons actually turned into a gigantic pair of scissors. It directly descended and cut towards Ning Fan's waist. This is this old man's unique skill. You should be proud that you can die under this technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man closed his eyes slightly as if he had already foreseen the scene where Ning Fan would be cut by the green flood dragon scissors. Facing the green flood dragon scissors attack, Ning Fan just slowly raised his right hand and pointed with his index finger. Shagu. A demonic wind blew between heaven and earth, and the black fog surged over. Above the sea of clouds, an enormous black butterfly demon image slowly appeared. It seemed illusory, like a black-colored flame that flickered indeterminately, and it emanated an ominous and evil aura. As the black-robed Ning Fan uttered the word Kashigu, the billowing black mist instantly condensed into a 1000 zhang ray of light which directly pressed down on the green WIRM scissors. With a loud bang, the green flood dragon scissors was directly crushed into countless pieces by Ning Fan's finger. The snake-haired old man, who was closing his eyes and pretending to be an expert, suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of disbelief. Before he could react, Ning Fan's 1000 zhang finger light had already rushed towards him and pressed down on his head. As soon as the finger beam pressed down, the snake-haired old man's entire body felt like it was about to be torn apart, and he felt endless pain. The enormous power of the finger spread out, and the snake-haired old man immediately flew backward while vomiting blood. After flying for a distance of 1,000 feet, he fell heavily on the ancient bluestone road. His whole body seemed to have become a bloody man. The current him no longer had the slightest disdain in his eyes. Instead, there was only shock and fear. He knew that he had misjudged Ning Fan. Ning Fan was definitely not a junior Shikong. This finger attack of this person is too strong. Even if I am not careless and use all my strength, I certainly won't be able to withstand this attack head-on. I can only retreat. This person is definitely not Shikong. Even if he isn't at the late thought fragmentation realm, he must be at the mid-thought fragmentation realm, who is half a step away from it. Damn it! If I knew that this person is strong, I wouldn't have dared to talk nonsense with him. I would certainly have escaped long ago. At this moment, the snake-haired old man's heart was filled with regret. Ning Fan ignored the snake-haired old man. He raised his finger again and pointed at the snake-haired old man. Kashi-gu. As the finger was pointed, endless black mist immediately appeared above the sea of clouds. It was like a black ocean, directly drowning the snake-haired old man. The black mist seemed to have a sealing power. Being inside the black mist, the snake-haired old man could not move at all. Within the black mist, there was a suction force that devoured the demonic power in the snake-haired old man's body, constantly erasing his cultivation base. That kind of erasure could not be defended at all. One breath erased 1,000 years of cultivation base. 10 breaths erased 10,000 years of cultivation base. The snake-haired old man had a profound cultivation base. Losing 10,000 years of cultivation base was nothing to him. However, what made him panic was that the life force in his body was also being crazily devoured by the black mist at a terrifying speed. If he was not seriously injured by Ning Fan's finger attack, he might still be able to slightly resist the loss of life force. However, at this moment, his injuries were extremely serious and he no longer had the strength to resist the loss of life force. In just 10 breaths, 90% of the snake-haired old man's life force was directly extracted by Ning Fan. After 10 breaths, the black mist gradually dissipated. Looking at the snake-haired old man who was on the verge of death, Ning Fan frowned. It's not enough. Even if I drain all the life force in this snake-haired old man's body, it's still not enough for the barbarian mark to devour. Forget it. I'll drain all the life force in this person's body first. Ning Fan lifted his finger again, as if he wanted to use the returning void finger again to take away all the life force of the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man collapsed to the ground. As soon as he saw Ning Fan lifting his finger again, his face turned pale with fright and he begged for mercy. Fellow Taoist, please wait. If you have something to say, we can talk it out. Please don't drain my life force again. 90% of the life force in my body has already been drained by fellow Taoist. If the remaining 10% is also drained, I will definitely die. I can see it now. Fellow Taoist, didn't you just reach a bottleneck in your cultivation and you need a large amount of life force for your cultivation? As for the life force, it's not a problem. I have plenty of it. As long as fellow Taoists spare my life, I am willing to offer you a treasure. The life force contained in it is definitely enough for fellow Taoists' cultivation. Fellow Taoist, let's make a deal. If you spare my life, I will give you a treasure. Ah! Fellow Taoist, please have mercy. Before the snake-haired old man could finish his words, Ning Fan directly grabbed his neck and lifted him up like a little chick. He was originally short and was only a little taller than a dwarf. Now that he was lifted up by Ning Fan, he looked a little funny. What is the treasure that you mentioned that contains the life force? Ning Fan asked coldly. It's... I can't say it. Fellow Taoist hasn't agreed to spare my life yet. I don't dare to say it. Once I say it, fellow Taoist will definitely. Ah! The snake-haired old man suddenly let out a miserable shriek and fainted. Ning Fan was too lazy to talk nonsense with the snake-haired old man. He directly used the reverse spirit technique to search his soul. After searching his soul, Ning Fan's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He took away the snake-haired old man's storage pouch and threw him on the ground. After searching the pouch for a while, Ning Fan took out a piece of purple python bone from it. As soon as Ning Fan saw that the life force contained in this python bone was actually 100 times more than the life force in the snake-haired old man's body, he immediately nodded his head in satisfaction. This item is a piece of bone left behind by the ancestor of the heaven-devouring python clan after he passed away. Once a member of the heaven-devouring python clan dies, they will retract their life force into their bones and pass it on to their descendants. If I don't have this bone, I might need to seize the life force of a few more people to have enough for my barbarian mark to devour. With this bone, it can save me some trouble. Ning Fan kept the python bone and frowned slightly. He glanced at the snake-haired old man and said indifferently. Don't pretend to be dead. The python bone that you offered is quite useful to me. I can let you go and spare your life. But the premise is that you help me unseal the python bone. The python bone did contain a large amount of life force, but it was in a sealed state. The seal was not strong. If Ning Fan wanted to, he could easily break it. However, the seal was extremely special. If the seal was broken in the wrong way, the life force contained in the python bone would dissipate in an instant. The correct way to break the seal could only be performed by the members of the heaven-devouring python clan. That was to use the power of the demon bloodline of the heaven-devouring python to break the seal. Outsiders who did not have the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python would not be able to break the seal. The snake-haired old man was still unconscious on the ground. He did not seem to have any reaction to Ning Fan's words. Seeing that, Ning Fan raised his finger again, as if he was going to use the returning ruin finger again to take the snake-haired old man's life. As soon as the snake-haired old man saw that Ning Fan was going to use the returning ruin finger again, he who was unconscious on the ground quickly got up from the ground and exclaimed in a hurry. Fellow Taoist, please stop. You can't. If you use this finger, I will definitely die. You're not pretending to be dead anymore. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not pretending anymore. Hee, the snake-haired old man smiled awkwardly at Ning Fan. Then, he rolled his eyes and said, I didn't take a closer look just now. Only now did I realize that fellow Taoist is actually a fake ancient demon. Hee. It turns out that fellow Taoist is a fellow Taoist of my demon race. I apologize for my rudeness. I wonder which race are you from? Just now, when fellow Taoist searched my memory, what you used seemed to be the reverse spirit technique of the true dragon clan. This technique seems to only be performed by the ancient immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. How did fellow Taoist manage to? On the surface, the snake-haired old man was smiling apologetically. Actually, his heart was already filled with huge waves. He was secretly guessing if Ning Fan was the ancient immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to cultivate the reverse spirit technique. Ning Fan did not intend to waste his breath on the snake-haired old man. He directly tossed the python bone to him. I'll give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Unseal this python bone. If you can't do it, you will die. If you say another word of nonsense, you will die. The snake-haired old man caught the python bone in a flurry. His entire body was filled with cold air. How would he dare to talk nonsense with Ning Fan anymore? He obediently shut his mouth. He looked at the python bone in his hand with a slightly complicated expression and then looked at Ning Fan. Then, he clenched his teeth and sat cross-legged on the ground. He activated the bloodline power in his body and began to unseal the python bone. Sigh. In the past, I only managed to obtain such a small piece of the ancestral python bone from my clan after making countless contributions. I didn't expect that I would have to give it to someone else before I could devour it. Forget it. As long as I can keep my life, what's the harm in giving up this python bone? This person is highly likely to be an immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. I can't afford to offend him. I just hope that he can keep his promise and spare my life after I help him unseal this bone. In just the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the snake-haired old man completed the unsealing of the python bone and handed it to Ning Fan respectfully. Ning Fan took the python bone and looked at it. Then, he nodded with satisfaction. With a flash, his body immediately shattered into countless black demonic lights and disappeared from the 21st ancient path. At the same time, in the 78th palace of the 19th ancient path, Ning Fan, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, opened his eyes for the first time. From the beginning to the end, Ning Fan's true body did not leave the 19th ancient path. He just used his divine ability to transform into a black-robed demon form and descended beside the snake-haired old man. That was all. Currently, Ning Fan's life force had been severely depleted. As he withdrew his divine ability, a large amount of life force immediately appeared in his body and a purple python bone appeared in his hand. Ning Fan placed the python bone on his knees and touched it with his finger, absorbing the life force within it. Gradually, the barbarian marks in his body devoured enough life force. The backlash began to lessen and gradually subsided. Gradually, Ning Fan's ears were filled with illusory sounds of barbarians chanting scriptures. It seemed to be very close but also very far away at the same time. It was difficult to hear the content of the scriptures clearly. He sat cross-legged in the main hall. The barbarian marks on his body constantly gave off a scorching feeling. At the same time, the shadow of an ancient statue slowly appeared behind him. The ancient statue was not solid. It only had a head, no face, and its limbs were only rough outlines. It was roughly in the shape of a human. At the moment when the ancient statue was formed, Ning Fan's body produced more and more barbarian blood. Within the barbarian blood, there were traces of bloodline memories that flowed into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Those bloodline memories were related to the 9 damaged tribulations of the young barbarian priest. Only now did Ning Fan know that the backlash that would occur when the number of barbarian marks reached 100 was called the damaged tribulation. What he had just passed was the 3rd damaged tribulation of the young barbarian priest. Ning Fan abruptly opened his eyes and looked at the ancient statue behind him. From the memories of his bloodline, Ning Fan knew that this ancient statue was called the young barbarian statue by the barbarian cultivators in the barbarian race. It was the symbol of the young barbarian priest of each tribe. Condensing the young barbarian statue meant that one had become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. I'm not a barbarian. I actually became the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. It's the chi of the young barbarian statue. That young man has really condensed the young barbarian statue. On the 6th and 7th floor of the heavenly tower, the first ancestor, the 2nd ancestor and the 4th ancestor were shocked. They stopped moving and looked at the direction of the heavenly tower with deep eyes. Others might not be able to sense the formation of the young barbarian statue, but the 3 of them who were the barbarian ancestors could sense it. At this moment, the 2nd ancestor and the 4th ancestor's eyes were filled with greed. Since Ning Fan had passed the 3rd damaged tribulation and condensed the young barbarian statue, theoretically, his body should have produced a drop of the barbarian race's ancestral blood. If they devour this drop of Ning Fan's ancestral blood, they would certainly gain a lot of benefits. The 2nd ancestor and the 4th ancestor really wanted to rush to the 3rd floor of the heavenly tower to kill Ning Fan and devour his bloodline. Unfortunately, the two of them did not have the time to care about Ning Fan at the moment. They had to climb all the way to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. What a pity. I really want to devour this young man. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor said regretfully. The first ancestor's eyes, however, were filled with fervor and seriousness. There was not much greed in them. I didn't expect this young man to really become the young barbarian minister. In this case, the ancestral barbarian blood that this young man possesses can become the best sacrificial offering to awaken the ninth barbarian god. The only pity is that this young man is currently in the lower floor of the heavenly tower. I'm in a hurry to head to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. I don't have the time to return to the lower floor to capture this young man, forget it. I still have a few sacrificial offerings that can be used. It's not like I have to use this young man. The first ancestor shook his head. He withdrew his gaze and continued to move forward. Even though he really wanted to capture Ning Fan and turn him into a sacrificial offering, it was a pity that he did not have the time to do so now. On the third floor of the heavenly tower, in the 78th palace of the 19th ancient road. As soon as he condensed his own young barbarian statue, Ning Fan's body immediately produced a large amount of barbarian blood. Vaguely, there was even a drop of ancestral barbarian blood forming in Ning Fan's body. From the memories of his bloodline, he already knew that what he had just gone through was the third damage tribulation of the young barbarian minister. He also knew that once he goes through the third ancestral blood tribulation and becomes the young barbarian minister, his body would produce a drop of ancestral barbarian blood. Ning Fan already knew all of this. However, when he sensed that there was an additional drop of ancestral blood in his body, he could not help but feel a little moved. An ordinary immortal venerable from the ancient times would need to spend at least millions of years of hard work to produce a drop of ancestral blood. He had just gone through the third damage tribulation of the young barbarian minister and he could already produce a drop of ancestral blood. It was really a great benefit for him. Unfortunately, the ancestral blood did not stay in Ning Fan's body for long before it was devoured by the Jia blood. The ancestral barbarian blood was devoured without any hesitation. Being a Jia blood, that was how capricious he was. The aura force of the ancestral barbarian blood rose from Ning Fan's body. Very quickly, that aura force dissipated and mixed with the aura force of the Jia blood. I didn't expect this Jia blood to be so domineering. It can even devour ancestral barbarian blood. Ning Fan's eyes were solemn as he muttered to himself. He could not help but be solemn. After absorbing the bloodline power of the entire drop of ancestral blood, the level of his Jia blood skyrocketed once again. The level of his Jia blood was originally 9-star broken blood. The difference between 9-star broken blood and 1-star true blood was like the distance between heaven and earth. It was extremely huge. Under normal circumstances, it was unimaginably difficult for him to break through to the true blood Jia blood. However, with the help of this drop of ancestral barbarian blood, the difficulty was reduced by a lot. Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the ground. The red light on his body became denser and denser. The Jia blood was boiling in his body. The level of the Jia blood was slowly approaching the level of 1-star true blood. Large amounts of red tribulation clouds began to appear in the entire third level of the heaven fault. Vaguely, there was the first scarlet bolt of heavenly tribulation lightning striking down from the sky. It was followed by the second, the third and the fourth bolt of lightning. More and more tribulation lightning formed in the sky and struck down towards the sea of clouds. One by one, the early thought fragmentation realm old monsters who were challenging the third level of the heaven fault hurriedly walked out of their palaces and looked towards the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the red tribulation lightning. No one knew why the heavenly tribulation phenomenon would appear in the third level of the heaven fault. No one knew what the red tribulation lightning signified. No one knew that the red tribulation lightning was the tribulation lightning that was formed from the power of tribulation sense. All they knew was that the power of the red tribulation lightning was too terrifying. Any one of them was enough to kill a life-immortal realm cultivator. 10 of them could kill Du Zhen. 100 of them could kill Shek Kong. 1,000 of them could kill sense fragmentation. In the desolate land that was suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, one only needed 100 of them to kill an early thought fragmentation realm old monster. What, is this lightning? Be it Mounz or Old Ancestor Jin Hua, each of the thought fragmentation realm old monsters in the third level of the heaven fault felt a chill run down their spines when they saw the red lightning above their heads. The number of the lightning increased. Eventually, there were 999 of them. All of a sudden, the 999 lightning bolts whistled and flew towards the 19th ancient path. They flew into the 78th palace and entered Ning Fan's body. At this moment, Ning Fan's tribulation blood had completely broken through the level of a 1-star true blood. At this moment, a demonic red talisman appeared on the back of Ning Fan's right hand. As soon as the talisman was activated, 999 tribulation lightning bolts coiled around Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan's ears were filled with the sound of wind and thunder. These tribulation lightning bolts are the abilities that the Tai Tsung tribulation spirit tribulation blood obtained after achieving minor completion. Ning Fan looked at the red tribulation lightning and muttered. With a thought, the scarlet talisman on the back of his right hand immediately went into hiding. The tribulation lightning bolts that coiled around his body also disappeared. As he activated the talisman again, the 999 tribulation lightning bolts appeared one after another. The power of these tribulation lightning bolts is very strong. I only need one lightning bolt to kill a life-immortal realm cultivator. 10 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early truth realm cultivator. 100 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early void-shedding realm cultivator. Today, I have 999 tribulation lightning bolts. With these tribulation lightning bolts, I can sweep across all void-shedding realm experts. In this desolate land that is suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, I can even kill a peak thought fragmentation realm expert with just a raise of my hand. Is this the power of the Tai Tsung tribulation spirit? Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed all the 999 tribulation lightning bolts back into his body. Today, he had already become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Today, he had broken through the bottleneck of the 1-star true blood with the help of that drop of ancestral realm barbarian blood and achieved minor completion in his tribulation blood. The Tai Tsung tribulation spirit who achieved minor completion in his tribulation blood was already invincible in the void-shedding realm. Now that Ning Fan's tribulation blood had broken through to the 1-star true blood, he was almost invincible in the void-shedding realm. The shadow of the young barbarian statue behind him gradually disappeared. Ning Fan suddenly stood up. His body was shrouded in red light. He walked out of the 78th palace and entered the 79th palace. In just a breath's time, Ning Fan passed the 79th palace and entered the 80th palace in a flash. In another breath's time, Ning Fan passed the 80th palace and entered the 81st palace. After entering the third level of the heaven fault, Ning Fan's speed of passing through the palaces had gradually slowed down. However, as his tribulation blood broke through and his strength improved tremendously, his speed of passing through the palaces once again increased to a terrifying speed. At the moment when Ning Fan became the young barbarian priest, the barbarian summoning technique that the 5 ancestors planted in his body was automatically broken. Even though the barbarian summoning technique was broken on its own, there would still be one more barbarian mark on Ning Fan's body every time he passed through a palace. After passing through the 82nd and 83rd palace, Ning Fan arrived at the 84th palace. The difficulty of passing through the 84th palace was a few times higher than the 83rd palace. No early thought fragmentation realm old monster could pass through this palace. Be it Mounz, Old Ancestor Jin Hua or even the snake-haired old man who was severely injured by Ning Fan, none of them could go any further. The 84th palace corresponded to the 306th barbarian mark. At the moment when Ning Fan entered the 84th palace, he could already feel the heavy pressure that rushed towards him. He smiled faintly. 46, 96,156,226. Sure enough, the next number is 306. The pressure was extremely heavy, but Ning Fan was able to ignore it. In less than a breath's time, he had passed through the 84th palace. The moment he passed through the 84th palace, the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 306. Barbarian blood was produced in his body once again. Whenever the number of barbarian marks reaches 100, a damage tribulation will descend. If I pass through the damage tribulation, my body will produce barbarian blood. If the number of barbarian marks reaches 46, 96, 156 and other specific numbers, barbarian blood will also be produced. Ning Fan's mind was racing. His feet didn't slow down at all as he passed through the palace at an extremely fast speed. My tribulation blood can increase my grade by devouring barbarian blood. Currently, my tribulation blood has already reached the level of 1-star true blood, but I wonder how much more barbarian blood I need to devour to break through to the 2-star true blood. With just the strength of my tribulation blood, I'm already invincible in the void abandoning realm. If I break through to the 2-star true blood, I wonder how much stronger I will become. Ning Fan passed through the 111th palace of the 3rd level of the heavenly fault very quickly. Ning Fan walked along the ancient bluestone path and reached the highest point of the 3rd level of the Sea of Clouds. Once again, the old man's voice resounded in his ears. You are, my true clansman. You are, the orthodox barbarian, my left hand is the barbarian, the life fire of all living beings, my right hand is the tribulation, the Tao of heaven and earth, the combination of tribulation and barbarian, is the barbarian god. You have gained something in the 3rd level. I will not bestow you with any additional fortune. Come, my clansmen, come to the top of the heavenly fault. I will wait for you. Let me give you the blessing of the barbarian god. Chapter 9:18. While Ning Fan was pondering, circles of light from the teleportation formation lit up under his feet. Without further ado, he stepped into the formation and teleported to the 4th level of the heavenly palace. There were a total of 48 ancient paths made of green stones at the entrance of the 4th level. All of them could lead to the 5th level. In the 4th level, Ning Fan sensed the chi of 15 sense fragmentation old monsters. Most of them were at the mid or late sense fragmentation realm. Only a few of them were at the peak sense fragmentation realm. As for the mid and late sense fragmentation realm old monsters, most of them stopped at the 63rd palace of the 4th level. As for the peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters, even though they had the ability to pass the 63rd palace, their speed was as slow as a turtle's crawl. Only a few peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters could reach the 5th level of the heavenly palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in the 63rd palace of the 4th level is 396. After 306, it should be 396. This level is a challenge for the sense fragmentation realm old monsters. However, it's not difficult for me since I have attained minor accomplishment in the tribulation blood realm. However, the 7th ancestor isn't in the 4th level. He's in a higher level. So, I have to speed up. Ning Fan's eyes slightly narrowed. He did not forget his original purpose of coming to the 9 Heavens Palace. His original purpose was to take back the souls of 1 million barbarians from the 7th barbarian ancestor. He did not come here to try his luck. He had no intention of peeking at the ancient passageway in this place. His target was the 7th ancestor. With a sway of his body, he directly turned into a ray of dazzling red light and dashed towards the 27th ancient road. It was a path that was uninhabited. As soon as he stepped onto the ancient path, all 15 of the thought-fragmenting patriarchs sensed him, and sent their divine will in his direction. Due to the layers of clouds, these old monsters could not see Ning Fan's appearance clearly. Vaguely, they could only see a human figure dashing out in red light. That red light was enchanting and evil. Another thought fragmentation eccentric has entered the fourth level. Judging from his aura, he seemed to be an old monster of the human race. Hiss. What kind of divine ability was that red light? Why did it give this old man a soul-stirring feeling? No matter who this person is, he is definitely not someone this old man can provoke. An old monster of the demon race felt his heart skip a beat. He was a peak thought fragmentation realm old monster, but he actually could not withstand the grand heaven tribulation might of Ning Fan's great heaven tribulation might after his tribulation blood reached the minor success stage. Without a cultivation base at the mid-thought shatterer stage or above, it's impossible to enter the fourth level of the heavenly court. This person's chi isn't strong. On the surface, he seems to be much weaker than a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster. Strange. Is he hiding his cultivation base? Or is he not a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster but entered this level using a special method? Speaking of which, when he entered the fourth level, he didn't seem to have torn open the sky. How did he enter the fourth level? Some of the old monsters were filled with doubts. After a round of probing, the 15 old monsters gradually withdrew their spirit sense and stopped paying attention to Ning Fan. After all, they still had to explore the palaces themselves. It was impossible for them to pay attention to others all the time. Ning Fan did not have the intention to pay attention to others. He just wanted to rush to the fifth level as quickly as possible. In this fourth level where even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters could not move an inch, he was actually able to pass through one palace after another at a terrifying speed. Ning Fan only used one breath to pass through the first palace. He also used one breath to pass through the second palace. The third palace, the fifth palace. Ning Fan only used less than a breath of time to pass through each of the palaces. The palaces constantly emitted dazzling divine light, plating layers upon layers of divine brilliance above the sea of clouds. Hiss. What kind of speed is this? This person only used one breath to pass through the palaces. One must know that this is the fourth level of the heavenly palace. The fourth level of the palaces is extremely difficult to pass. Even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters would not be able to move an inch. This person's speed is only comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could it be that this person is an ancient immortal venerable? Among the 15 thought fragmentation realm old monsters, 9 of them were old monsters of the demon race. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Almost all of them believed that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal venerable. They could sense the human chi that Ning Fan deliberately released from his body. They thought that this person was actually an ancient immortal venerable of the human race. He was not a 6 combos immortal venerable nor was he immortal venerable Miao Yen. The 2 ancient immortal venerables of the human race had already ascended to the higher levels of the heavenly palace. Where did this person come from? Why would there be a 3rd ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world? Who is this ancient immortal venerable of the human race? Each of the old monsters of the demon race secretly guessed. Some of them even used a secret technique to inform the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. The 6 thought fragmentation realm experts of the human race on the 4th level of the heavenly palace were suddenly filled with excitement. Although the members of the demon race did not know the identity of the human race, they were able to guess Ning Fan's identity. If there is a 3rd ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world, it must be Senior Zhao Jian. I didn't expect that Senior Zhao Jian would also come to the 9 heavens imperial court. While the 6 of them were muttering, one of them used a secret technique to send a secret message to the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. Ning Fan moved forward silently, ignoring everything around him. His body seemed to have become one with the red light of the tribulation sense. Scarlet lightning kept flashing around his body. That was the lightning of the tribulation sense. Currently, he could easily defeat all the fragmentation realm old monsters in this place with just the power of his minor accomplishment tribulation blood. Only a few immortal venerables could suppress the power of his small success tribulation blood. The 6th palace, the 7th palace, the 8th palace. Ning Fan continued to advance through the palaces. His barbarian marks were also increasing one after another. He continued until he reached the 63rd palace. This palace was the place where the mid and late fragmentation realm old monsters would stop. However, it only took Ning Fan one breath to force his way through. The number of his barbarian marks had reached 396. Immediately, a small amount of barbarian blood appeared in his body. Devouring this barbarian blood did not have much effect on improving his tribulation blood. The 64th palace, the 65th palace. The 67th palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in this palace was 400. After advancing through this palace, Ning Fan's barbarian marks had reached 400. However, he did not receive the 4th tribulation. The 4th tribulation didn't descend. Ning Fan was slightly stunned. His expression turned solemn. When he became the young barbarian lord, he gained a lot of memories from the barbarian race's bloodline. He knew that the young barbarian lord who was promoted through the barbarian summoning technique would face 9 tribulations in total. Of course, one would be able to become the young barbarian lord after successfully overcoming the first 3 tribulations. However, if the number of barbarian marks in the young barbarian lord's barbarian marks continues to increase and they break through 100 barriers again, they would still face the next tribulations. According to the introduction of the bloodline, Ning Fan would face the 4th tribulation when his barbarian marks reach 400. However, the truth was that the 4th tribulation did not descend. If the 4th tribulation descends now, it won't be difficult for me to get through it with the purple python bone that I obtained. However, I don't know why the 4th tribulation didn't descend. Ning Fan flipped his hand and took out the purple python bone. There was still 90% of its life force left. He had only used 10% of its life force to get through the 3rd tribulation. He flipped his hand again and kept the python bone. After a moment of silence, he dashed out of the 67th palace and continued moving forward. Without the disturbance of the 4th tribulation, he naturally did not need to waste time in the 67th palace. The 68th palace, the 69th palace, the 70th palace, the 71st palace. Ning Fan went through 111 palaces and stepped on the teleportation formation under his feet, entering the 5th level of the heavenly palace. Strangely, the voice of the old man did not appear this time, just like the 4th tribulation that had disappeared. The Tongtian ancient emperor who was in the crimson passageway frowned and stared at the stone monument in front of him. Ning Fan's ranking on the monument had risen to the 9th place at an astonishing speed. The top 8 were respectively the 4 barbarian ancestors and the immortal venerables of the human race and the demon race. Ning Fan was the 9th place. His ranking did not have a name, but it was already impossible for the Tongtian ancient emperor to ignore it. The 9th place. Could this nameless cultivator really be an ancient cultivator? He entered the 9 heavenly palaces, the latest among all of us, but in just a short period of time, he has already surpassed all the broken sense old monsters and entered the 5th level. The Tongtian ancient emperor stared at the giant monument. At this moment, Ning Fan's position was displayed as the 97th palace of the 4th level. Every breath, Ning Fan's position would change. In just 10 breaths, Ning Fan's position had changed to the 1st palace of the 5th level. According to my deduction, there should only be 8 ancient immortal venerables in this desolate land. Could it be that I've made a mistake? If this person is really the 9th immortal venerable, which race does he belong to? The human race? The demon race? Or perhaps, this person is one of the surviving barbarian ancestors. The Tongtian ancient emperor's brows were tightly knitted. He was used to having everything under control and hated changes. Perhaps, Ning Fan's sudden appearance would be a great change in the competition for the ancient passageway between the human race and the demon race. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, can you use your ability to confirm this person's cultivation base and race? The Tongtian ancient emperor asked Meng Xuanzi. This is very difficult, but if I can borrow 2 treasures from you, I have a 30% chance of detecting this person's cultivation base and race. Meng Xuanzi answered with a solemn expression. Oh. May I know what treasures fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi needs? Feel free to ask us. Many immortal emperors of the human race said. There were also some immortal emperors who remained silent and looked at Meng Xuanzi quietly. Meng Xuanzi hesitated for a moment and then cupped his fists at the 2 female emperors. I need to borrow the Fuli Bone Umbrella of the Zifu Academy and the 3rd Yin Fusion Pearl of the Lost World Palace. I wonder if the 2 of you are willing to lend them to me. As soon as Meng Xuanzi's voice fell, a few gasps could be heard from the crowd. The rest of the immortal emperors also wore solemn expressions. After all, the Fuli Bone Umbrella and the 3rd Yin Fusion Pearl that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow were considered extremely precious treasures among the emperors of the 4 heavens. The Fuli Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. Now, it was in the hands of immortal Emperor Zhongjie. The 3rd Yin Fusion Pearl was the most precious treasure of the Lost World Palace. It was also known as the heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven. There were originally 10 of them. The first one was the weakest and the 10th one was the strongest. Among them, the 10th one was already destroyed for some reason. The 9 pearls were currently in the custody of the emperors of the Lost World Palace. The 3rd pearl was in the hands of the old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow these 2 treasures, immortal Emperor Zhongjie stroked her hair with a calm expression and looked at Meng Xuanzi inquisitively. The Fuli Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. It was not something that could be lent out easily. However, this matter was more important. If it was really necessary, she would not be stingy with her treasures. The old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace was an old woman in gray. She was the master of the palace master, Yuanyao. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow the 3rd Yin Fusion Pearl, the old ancestor of the Western Palace immediately turned hostile despite her friendship with Meng Xuanzi. Meng Xuanzi. If you were to borrow any other treasure, this old woman would naturally lend it to you without hesitation. However, the Yin Fusion Pearl is extremely important. If I were to lend it to you and something were to happen to it, this old woman would likely be at a disadvantage when competing with the Eastern Palace and Northern Palace in the future. This old woman will definitely not lend this treasure to you. The old ancestor of the Lost World Palace had always been an unreasonable person. Even though she had a good relationship with Meng Xuanzi, she could still turn hostile in a fit of anger. Meng Xuanzi smiled bitterly. He knew that the old ancestor of the Western Palace and the old ancestor of the Western Palace would not lend him their treasures so easily. He did not insist and only glanced at the Tongtian ancient emperor helplessly. With his reputation, it was not enough for him to borrow their treasures. However, if it was the Tongtian ancient emperor, the ancient passage is of great importance. No accidents can happen. Both of you, lend your treasures to Meng Xuanzi. If anything happens to the treasures, I will take responsibility. There were a total of 28 constellation ancient emperors in the Four Oceans sect. The Tongtian ancient emperor was the first ancient emperor of the Four Oceans sect and the leader of the sect. If he spoke, no one would dare to disrespect him except for the secret race. Since the Tongtian ancient emperor had spoken, the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor did not say anything else. She tore open her natal world and took out a purplish-black light. She did not know what it was and directly handed it to Meng Xuanzi. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had an ugly expression on her face. She was not as generous as the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor and was reluctant to lend her treasures. However, the Tongtian ancient emperor had already spoken. Even if she didn't want to, she didn't dare to refuse. Clenching her teeth, she tore open her life interface and took out a black pearl. It emitted a blinding light, as dazzling as a small sun. The third Yin fusion pearl was not black. Only the third Yin fusion pearl was black because it was tainted by the devil will. In addition to the third Yin fusion pearl, I still have the sixth and seventh Yin fusion pearls. The third Yin fusion pearl is not as good as the other two pearls. It had fallen into the hands of the devil race in the ancient devil abyss and was tainted by the devil will. It is not a problem to lend this pearl to Meng Xuanzi since the Tongtian ancient emperor is here. Forget it. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had a gloomy expression. She handed the third Yin fusion pearl to Meng Xuanzi and said, "Old man Meng Xuanzi, the third Yin fusion pearl is now yours. You must use it carefully. The treasure has been given to you. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, please use your technique quickly. This old man wants to see the origin of that nameless cultivator." The Tongtian ancient emperor urged. Meng Xuanzi nodded and summoned the two treasures in his hand. They turned into rays of light and entered the steel. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and murmured. With the help of the two treasures, he had a 30% chance of discovering Ning Fan's origin. However, it would take a lot of time for him to sense it. At the same time, the true dragon patriarch of the demon race was frowning like the Tongtian ancient emperor. He stared at the leather curtain summoned by the monster Gui. Above the curtain, there was a red figure that flashed past from time to time. It was very blurry and he couldn't see the appearance of the red figure clearly. He could only vaguely see the figure flying past, the first level of the heavenly palace, the second level, the third level, the fourth level. Now, that red figure had entered the fifth level of the heavenly palace. Strange. According to this old man's deduction, there shouldn't be a ninth immortal venerable in the current 9 heavenly palace. But this person can go all the way to the fifth level. His speed is comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could this person be an unforeseen event that this old man missed? The true dragon patriarch's character was more gloomy compared to the Tongtian ancient emperor. However, there was a similarity between the two of them. That was, he hated changes in his plan. His eyes turned gloomy. Then, he said to the monster Gui. "Is there a way to make the projection on the curtain clearer? If this person is the 9th immortal venerable, this old man must know who he is." The monster Gui's face turned pale and said with a wry smile. "It won't work. I've tried my best. It's too difficult to see who he is. It doesn't matter. I'll lend this to you." The true dragon patriarch pondered for a while. Suddenly, he tore open the void and took out an illusory fog. It was in the shape of a bow. With a flick of his finger, the object was passed to the monster Gui. When the great emperors of the demon race saw the true dragon patriarch take out the object, their expressions changed drastically. If they weren't mistaken, this illusory mist was actually quintessence energy. The origin chi was the key to breaking through to the third step saint realm. There were 3 kinds of origin chi, which were the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. Therefore, the great emperors of the 4 heavens often called the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. The origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi were the key to breaking through to the third step of cultivation. Unfortunately, the amount of origin chi needed to break through to the third step was too large. One of the important reasons why there was no saint in the 4 heavens was that there was not enough origin chi. One of the important reasons why the old monsters of the 4 heavens wanted to enter the ancient passageway and enter the heaven desolate ancient realm was to obtain a large amount of origin chi and enter the third step of cultivation. If the candle bow's bow spirit was here, it would probably curse the true dragon patriarch when he took out the illusory fog. The candle bow's bow spirit had once followed the ancestral dragon to conquer the world and killed countless experts. It was rewarded by the ancestral dragon which gave it some origin chi. Unfortunately, the current true dragon patriarch boldly refined the origin chi in the candle bow's bow spirit. That was why the candle bow's bow spirit became even weaker. If the true dragon patriarch did not take away the origin chi of the candle Bao's Bao spirit, with its strength, it might have killed Ning Fan on that day instead of being captured by Ning Fan. I'll lend you this origin chi. I hope that this time, you can completely reflect the appearance of that red figure. The true dragon patriarch said to the monster Gui in a deep voice. His expression contained a hint of warning. The origin chi could be devoured and refined. It could also be used to perform divine abilities. If it was used to perform divine abilities, it could greatly increase the power of those divine abilities. If it was devoured and refined, it could greatly improve a cultivator's cultivation base. The monster Gui's face turned pale again. She understood the true dragon patriarch's warning. She definitely would not dare to devour and refine the origin chi without permission. She only dared to use the origin chi to perform divine abilities. The true dragon patriarch would not ask her how much she used. As for the remaining origin chi, she still had to return it to him. If she dared to devour even a little bit of the origin chi without permission, she was afraid that she would immediately incur the wrath of the true dragon patriarch. With the help of the origin chi, I will definitely be able to project the appearance of that red figure. The monster Gui gave the true dragon patriarch a promise. Then, she immediately sat on the ground with her legs crossed and performed hand seals to perform her technique. While the human emperors were trying to investigate Ning Fan, the demon race was also doing the same. Ning Fan was unaware of all of this. At this moment, he was running at full speed on the 5th floor of the heavenly palace. There was not a single person on the 5th floor. According to Ning Fan's estimation, he probably would not encounter any thought-severing old monsters at his current height. If he were to encounter someone, it would be either the ancient immortal venerables of the human race or the barbarian ancestors. It seems like I'm about to catch up with the 7th ancestor. When he reached the 5th floor of the heavenly palace, he could not help but slow down even though his strength had increased tremendously. The aura force of each palace was enough to make the ancient immortal venerables look askance. Even though Ning Fan could defeat all the thought-severing old monsters in the desolate world ere the immortal prohibition force was active, the difference between his strength and that of the ancient immortal venerables was like heaven and earth. After all, the strength of the ancient immortal venerables was not suppressed by the immortal prohibition force. It took Ning Fan 10 breaths to break through the first palace of the 5th floor. It took him 15 breaths to break through the 2nd palace. When he reached the 10th palace, it took him 50 breaths to clear it. The further he progressed, the more difficult it became. When he reached the 20th palace and above, he actually felt that it was difficult for him to move an inch forward. Even though his current strength was much stronger than the thought-severing old monsters here, he was still too far away from the ancient immortal venerables. The other ancient immortal venerables could easily break through the 5th floor of the heavenly palace and enter the 6th floor. However, he could not do that. So I can only rely on the power of my magic treasures. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He took out the memory-severing Dao sword and placed it around him to protect himself. He tried to use the power of his magic treasure to resist the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces and increase his speed of advancement. Unfortunately, as soon as the memory-severing Dao sword appeared, it was shattered into bits of purple chi by the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces. It could not withstand the aura force of this place at all. The memory-severing Dao sword was a Dao weapon. Although its form was shattered, it was not destroyed. However, it could not help Ning Fan to clear the palaces because its current level was not high enough. With a wave of his hand, Ning Fan took out a few 5 Nirvana and 6 Nirvana acquired magic treasures. However, these magic treasures could not help him withstand the aura force of this place either. If I can take out the steel of sun and moon from the profound Yin world, it will certainly be able to withstand the aura force of this place with its innate power, allowing me to enter the 6th floor of the heavenly palace with ease. Unfortunately, my cultivation base is not high enough. I can't take it out from the profound Yin world. Even though that purple gourd is an innate item, it isn't a true innate treasure after all. I can't use it to withstand the aura force of this place. As for the other magic treasures, their levels aren't high enough to help me catch up to the seventh ancestor. As expected, this is the only thing that I can use. Ning Fan suddenly moved forward. Immediately, dozens of 6-colored and 7-colored arrow shadows flew out from his body. Ning Fan only had one 7-colored arrow left. However, he still had many 6-colored arrows. In the past, Ning Fan's strength was only enough to shoot 3 6-colored arrows at the same time. Even so, he could already injure the barbarian ancestor who was at the immortal venerable realm. Now, Ning Fan's strength had improved greatly. According to his estimation, it would not be difficult for him to shoot 5 consecutive arrows at the same time. If he shoots 5 arrows at the same time, he was afraid that it would be enough to severely injure the barbarian ancestor. Even though these 7-colored arrows were not true magic treasures and were just arrows condensed from the incense flames of slaughter, they immediately helped Ning Fan block most of the aura force of the palaces. Ning Fan felt the aura force on his body lighten. With that, he could once again climb to the upper floor of the heavenly palace at an extremely fast speed. When he took out the 7-colored arrows, he naturally took out the bow spirit of the candle bow as well. In the past, the bow spirit of the candle bow helped Ning Fan kill the barbarian ancestor. However, until today, Ning Fan still did not lend the candle bow his purple gourd. Logically speaking, the bow spirit of the candle bow should be full of complaints. With its talkative personality, it would probably nag incessantly as soon as Ning Fan summons it out. However, when Ning Fan took out the bow spirit of the candle bow today, it did not say a single word. It was as quiet as an obedient child. Oh. Has this bow spirit changed its personality today? It actually didn't nag me anymore. Ning Fan was slightly surprised, but his eyes were filled with curiosity. The bow spirit of the candle bow was still as quiet as before. At this moment, it naturally would not divert its attention to talk to Ning Fan. It sensed its own opportunity. It found a chance to escape from Ning Fan's evil clutches. Soon. That old bastard Ao Qiangu actually used this item. Hee. Great. This is really great. The bow spirit of the candle bow tried its best to suppress the urge to laugh wildly in its heart. It did not want Ning Fan to see the changes in its mind. That Ao Qiangu is the descendant of the ancestral dragon and the current leader of the true dragon clan in vain. In the past, he actually dared to take away my origin chi. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been captured by this malefic star and I wouldn't have been unable to break free from the seal that he planted on me. The bow spirit of the candle bow was filled with resentment. However, when it thought of the future, it began to beam with joy and become extremely wretched. I didn't expect that this stupid old man still hasn't refined my origin chi. This time, he even used this item to cast a technique in order to scheme against this little malefic star. If it was someone else, they certainly wouldn't be able to sense it. However, that origin chi came from me. I can feel it. Hee. It's very close. Very close. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. I will certainly have the chance to take back this origin chi. Once I do, it will be easy for me to break free from the seal and escape from the evil clutches of that malefic star. From then on, I can go anywhere in the world. I can have all the beauties in the world. I can be as lonely as snow. This old man is finally going to be free. Once I escape from the evil clutches of this malefic star, I will definitely make him beg for death. Well, it's better not to do that. It's never a good thing to encounter this malefic star. If I manage to escape, it's better to keep a low profile and run away quietly. Yes, that's how it should be. The bow spirit of the candle bow was secretly devising an escape plan. When Ning Fan arrived at the 33rd palace of the 5th floor with the help of the incense arrows, the sea of clouds suddenly separated into 2 sides. At the same time, 3 rays of light formed 3 different colored clouds and swept towards Ning Fan. In the northern clouds, one could vaguely see the huge shadow of a purplish-black bone umbrella. In the eastern clouds, one could vaguely see a black sun that was slowly rising. In the southern clouds, there were clouds of mist that seemed to be both real and illusory. It was constantly emitting a heavy aura that could make any cultivator who saw it feel solemn. Sure enough, it's this old man's origin chi. But, why is there someone else casting a technique on this malefic star? There won't be any accidents, right? The Bao spirit of the candle Bao suddenly became nervous. He finally found a chance to escape and he didn't want to miss it. This is. Just as Ning Fan walked out of the 33rd palace and stepped on the ancient bluestone path, his expression suddenly changed and he raised his head. North, east and south. 3 kinds of vast chi were crazily coming towards him from 3 directions. A huge pressure suddenly pressed down on him. Even with Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he felt a sharp pain in his chest and immediately retreated frantically. Only after retreating 10 steps on the ancient bluestone path did he manage to stabilize his body. However, it was still difficult for him to withstand the pressure from 3 directions at the same time. At this moment, the human race and demon race simultaneously activated their divine abilities to investigate Ning Fan. They wanted to find out the origin of Ning Fan. Someone is spying on me. Ning Fan's heart immediately had a feeling of being spied on, and his face sank. Chapter 9:19. 3 powerful chi surged towards him from the north, the east and the south. With Ning Fan's second heavenly being realm eyesight, he could naturally sense the extremely sharp probing power from the 3 chi. He could even vaguely sense that there was a supreme treasure hidden in each of them. He knew that there was a powerful cultivator outside the savage desolation ancient territory using a divine ability to probe him. Moreover, judging from the scale of the attack, it was highly possible that the cultivator who was probing him was an immortal emperor, a peak expert in this world. As Ning Fan's thoughts raced, the 3 incomparably powerful chi instantly approached him. The sea of clouds in the north and the east suddenly shone with golden rays and countless golden threads were reflected from within. As soon as those golden threads appeared, they immediately entangled Ning Fan. The billowing aura of an immortal emperor descended from the sky. At this moment, Ning Fan could only feel the bones in his body making cracking sounds as if they were about to be crushed. Under the tremendous chi, when the countless golden threads approached him, he actually felt that he could not move an inch. It was as if he could only let himself be bound by them. This was the power of an immortal emperor. Even if Ning Fan's current mid-true crossing realm and his current minor accomplishment in Calamity Blood, he still could not withstand the power of an immortal emperor's magic technique. The gap between the two of them was like a chasm. Ning Fan naturally understood the huge gap between him and an immortal emperor. He could also feel that the 3 chi just wanted to probe his background and not take his life. However, it was impossible for him to not resist and allow them to probe his identity. Ning Fan performed a hand seal and the numerous Joss flame arrows that were hovering around him immediately emitted 6 and 7 colored rays of light and shot towards the front. The golden thread in front of him suddenly transformed into a withered, old golden hand that grabbed the many Joss flame arrows. The force of the grab contained a trace of immortal emperor's might. Ordinary magic treasures could not resist it at all. The moment the Joss flame arrows were caught by the golden hand, they immediately flew back to Ning Fan's side with a slightly weakened chi. Only the Joss flame arrows were not repelled by the golden hand. Instead, they suddenly charged forward and directly penetrated the golden hand. Even the Joss flame arrows that were locked on to Ning Fan were broken. An old man's voice was heard from the sky. It was Meng Xuanzi who was outside the savage desolation. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to uncover the identity of this mysterious cultivator even after using his full strength and the power of the treasure. Meng Xuanzi had no intention of harming this mysterious cultivator. He merely wanted to find out his identity and complete the mission given by the ancient emperor of Tongtian. He smiled faintly and performed a technique that separated realms again. The chi gap in front of Ning Fan instantly closed up. More golden threads turned into huge hands and grabbed at Ning Fan. Layers of golden threads were like an ocean, sealing all of Ning Fan's escape routes. At the same time, Meng Xuanzi's voice transmission resounded above the sea of clouds. "Little fellow, don't be afraid. This old man is only investigating your identity. I won't harm you, so there's no need to be so nervous." This voice carried a heartfelt kindness, and it was related to Meng Xuanzi's character. Meng Xuanzi was a sovereign celestial emperor. His status in the North Heaven Celestial Empire was extremely respected, but he was also very easygoing. Ordinary immortal emperors were proud and arrogant people. It was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to meet an immortal emperor. However, Meng Xuanzi was different. He opened a forum on the Black Tortoise planet and taught everyone regardless of background. Any cultivator could go to the Black Tortoise planet to listen to his Tao lecture. He had always been tolerant towards the cultivators of the younger generation and often helped them. When Ning Fan first cultivated the Tao, he had accidentally displayed the Spirit Wander 10,000 Li ability. A trace of his spirit sense reached the northern heaven but he couldn't retrieve it. He was about to get lost in the starry sky and it was extremely dangerous. At that time, it was Meng Xuanzi who helped him and saved him. Later on, Ning Fan killed a mortal and divine transformation realm cultivator and received a lot of help from Meng Xuanzi. All the signs proved that Meng Xuanzi was indeed a good person that was hard to come by in the cultivation world. When Ning Fan heard Meng Xuanzi's voice, he felt that it sounded a little familiar. When he tried to recall, how could he not know that the person who was performing the technique on him was immortal Emperor Meng Xuanzi of the Northern Heaven who had helped him before? After a bitter smile, Ning Fan shook his head. Even though Meng Xuanzi had helped him before, he really did not want to expose his identity at this moment. The 6-colored incense flame arrow could not go against those huge golden hands. Ning Fan had no choice but to control the last 7-colored incense flame arrow to pierce through those huge hands. However, those golden threads were endless. It was impossible for him to break out of their encirclement. This little fellow is really stubborn. Meng Xuanzi smiled and shook his head. Seeing that he could not restrain Ning Fan with his own strength, he immediately formed hand seals with all 10 of his fingers and controlled the Fuli Bony Umbrella and the third Yin Fusion Pearl to press down on Ning Fan. The Fuli Bony Umbrella was one of the magic treasures that guarded the Purple Mansion Academy. It was extremely powerful. The third Yin Fusion Pearl was the heaven-guarding magic treasure of the Northern Heaven Lost World Palace. Its power was even more extraordinary. From Meng Xuanzi's point of view, it shouldn't be difficult for him to restrain Ning Fan and find out his background with the power of these 2 magic treasures. However, what happened next shocked him. He saw the 2 magic treasures descending from the sky with an overwhelming aura as if they wanted to directly suppress Ning Fan to the ground. Their ferocity soared to the sky. However, when the 2 magic treasures descended 100 zhang above Ning Fan's head, they suddenly began to tremble for some unknown reason. The 2 treasures continued to descend. When they were 10 zhang away from Ning Fan, their power actually decreased greatly. It was as if Ning Fan was some kind of ancient ferocious beast that they did not dare to approach at all. This is strange. What kind of ability did this little fellow use? It actually stopped these 2 treasures from descending. Meng Xuanzi said with a face full of astonishment. At this moment, Ning Fan raised his head and looked at the 2 trembling treasures above his head. His eyes were extremely strange. Previously, he was too far away and could not see clearly. Now, however, he was only 10 zhang away from the 2 treasures. He could clearly see that the 2 magic treasures that Meng Xuanzi used were actually these 2 items. If he was not mistaken, the bone umbrella was obviously refined from the remains of a Fuli demon ancestor. However, this Fuli demon ancestor seemed to only have 2 droplets of ancestral blood when it was alive. Therefore, when it faced Ning Fan now, the bone umbrella instinctively felt fear. It was because Ning Fan was also a Fuli demon ancestor and he had more ancestral blood. Ning Fan was once a Fuli demon ancestor who had 4 droplets of ancestral blood. Because he had burned 1 droplet of Fuli ancestral blood, he only had 3 droplets left now. Even so, the aura force of the Fuli demon ancestor in his body was far stronger than the Fuli bone umbrella. It was not something that the umbrella could resist at all. The other magic treasure was a black pearl that looked like a miniature sun. At first glance, Ning Fan did not know what it was. However, when he sensed the connection between him and the pearl, Ning Fan immediately realized what a powerful magical treasure this pearl was. If he was not mistaken, this pearl was a supreme treasure that was as famous as the heaven-suppressing bell, the Yin Fusion Pearl. The Yin Fusion Pearl was a heaven-guarding treasure of the Northern Heaven immortal world. There were originally 10 of them and they were in the hands of the Northern Heaven Lost World Palace. Among the 10 Yin Fusion Pearls, the first one was the weakest while the 10th one was the strongest. However, since the 10th Yin Fusion Pearl had been lost a long time ago, the Lost World Palace only had 9 Yin Fusion Pearls now. Ning Fan was fortunate enough to devour a fragment of the 10th Yin Fusion Pearl in the Quicksand Star region and used it to comprehend the power of time. Therefore, his body naturally carried a trace of the 10th Pearl's qi. What Meng Xuanzi borrowed was the 3rd Yin Fusion Pearl. Its ranking was far lower than the 10th Pearl. Therefore, when he sensed the trace of the 10th Pearl's qi on Ning Fan's body, he immediately became fearful. No matter how Meng Xuanzi used his abilities, the 2 treasures did not dare to attack Ning Fan at all. This made Meng Xuanzi puzzled and gave him a headache. Legend has it that there was a treasure called the Treasure Fall coin in the ancient times. It can make magic treasures lose their power. Could it be that this young man is carrying some kind of magic treasure that can even restrain the Fuli skeletal umbrella and the Yin Fusion Pearl? Meng Xuanzi muttered to himself. The 2 borrowed magic treasures were useless. In this way, no matter how strong Meng Xuanzi's abilities were, he would not be able to find out Ning Fan's background from the ancient wild region. As time goes by, it would be easy for him to be devoured by the world power of the ancient wild region. By then, even if Meng Xuanzi was an immortal emperor, he would still be injured. After pondering for a while, Meng Xuanzi sighed softly and transmitted his voice to Ning Fan. "Little friend, you have a powerful ability. I can't find out anything about you. Let's just forget about this matter." As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to keep the Fuli skeletal umbrella and the Yin Fusion Pearl. However, at this moment, Ning Fan intentionally released a trace of the qi of the human race, as if he was purposely letting Meng Xuanzi detect him. A cultivator of the human race. Meng Xuanzi's eyes lit up. He withdrew his ability and magic treasures and reported the matter to the ancient reaching heaven emperor. He could not find out Ning Fan's identity nor his cultivation base. However, he found out that Ning Fan was a cultivator of the human race. The ancient reaching heaven sovereign's tightly knitted brows loosened. He said to the immortal emperors indifferently, "Since this mysterious cultivator is a cultivator of the human race, there's nothing to worry about. Even if this person obtains the entrance to the infinite wasteland, we can still take it slowly. It's better than falling into the hands of the demon race. However, according to my deduction, there shouldn't be a 3rd immortal venerable of the human race in the infinite wasteland at this moment. Could this person be a member of a secret race? If so..." The ancient reaching heaven sovereign frowned again. No one knew what he was thinking about. As Meng Xuanzi withdrew his ability and magic treasures, the pressure around Ning Fan's body was instantly relieved. The massive qi that was accumulated in the north and the east was also withdrawn. All of a sudden, Ning Fan's eyes darkened. Only then did he realize that the massive qi in the south did not dissipate. Initially, he thought that Meng Xuanzi was the only one who was investigating him. Only now did he realize that there was another immortal emperor who was investigating him. Demon Sovereign Technique, eternal puppet. A soft and delicate voice of a lady suddenly resounded from the clouds in the south. All of a sudden, an incomparably dangerous sense of crisis immediately surged into Ning Fan's heart. In the south, the illusory fog suddenly condensed into a giant brush, and it actually drew in the empty sky with one stroke. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. That brush was drawn at an extremely slow speed. However, the object that was drawn appeared at an extremely fast speed. It was a giant ghost that seemed illusory and illusory. As the giant brush drew the last stroke, it directly walked out of the painting. Its body emitted an aura force that was comparable to that of a Qigong cultivator. It roared and pounced at Ning Fan. Judging from its posture, it seemed like it wanted to swallow Ning Fan into its stomach. Since it was a character in the painting, it did not seem to be restricted by the forbidden immortal power of this place. Meng Xuanzi did not use any extreme methods to investigate Ning Fan. However, this female empress seemed to be much more ruthless. If Ning Fan is really swallowed by this giant ghost, the female empress would certainly find out his identity and appearance. At the same time, he would either die or be severely injured. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he was naturally not afraid of this Qigong. He who had achieved minor accomplishment in the Calamity Blood Realm was almost at the peak of the Qigong. However, for some unknown reason, the giant ghost in front of him still gave him a strong sense of crisis. The giant ghost charged forward. When it was 100 zhang away from Ning Fan, it suddenly roared. Strangely, it did not make any sound at all. However, the sense of crisis in Ning Fan's heart increased immensely at this moment. An invisible force suddenly crashed into his chest, not giving him any time to react. At this moment, the star-defying devil armor on Ning Fan's chest automatically appeared, trying to block this invisible force. However, with just a single strike, the star-defying devil armor actually cracked. Then, it exploded into pieces with a loud bang. Even 2 of the 6-colored incense fire arrows in front of him were directly broken by the roar. As for Ning Fan, he coughed out blood and was forced to retreat due to the residual force of the impact. His body was also heavily injured. The strangest thing was that this injury could not be healed at all. The Black Star technique could not heal this injury. The same went for the power of pills. What kind of force is this impact force? Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. His second-level heavenly being realm vision immediately scanned the giant ghost. Ning Fan's expression immediately changed when he saw it. The body of the giant ghost was made up of an illusory mist that Ning Fan had never seen before. There was only one trace of that mist. However, the massive energy it contained was enough to make Ning Fan's heart skip a beat. The giant ghost's appearance seemed ordinary and it only had the void-abandoning cultivation base. However, if it explodes its body and ignites the illusory mist in its body, the power of the explosion would be enough to make any immortal venerables or immortal kings flee. Even an immortal emperor would not dare to face it head-on. Roar! The giant ghost roared again. This time, the sound wave of the roar was no longer invisible. Instead, it had turned into a solid black color. As the black sound wave swept across the sky, countless great Tao patterns appeared in heaven and earth. All of them were shattered. The roar of the giant ghost could even shatter the great Tao laws. I can't fight it head-on. Ning Fan sucked in a breath of cold air. Perhaps even ordinary immortal emperors would not dare to face the giant ghost in front of him head-on. Ning Fan was not foolish enough to fight this giant ghost head-on and face the sound wave head-on. Humans need to have the courage to overcome difficulties, but at the same time, they also need to know their limits. Ning Fan tapped the ground with the tip of his feet and immediately retreated. However, at this moment, the dragon horn longbow that Ning Fan had been holding in his hand suddenly broke free from his grip and dashed towards the pitch-black sound wave. Ha! It's really the primordial chi that was taken away from me in the past. Hee hee. Little Fan, your good days are finally coming to an end. I, your grandfather, don't have to be afraid of you anymore. With these primordial chi, the seal that you planted in my body is nothing. Little fan, listen to me. From today onwards, I, the Bao spirit, am your grandfather and your ancestor. I will no longer serve you, who plays with fire, anymore. I want to pursue my own happy life. No one can stop me. Ning Fan's eyes immediately narrowed. Is this candle Bao trying to betray me at this critical moment? Besides, according to the candle Bao, could it be that the illusory mist with terrifying power is actually the legendary primordial chi, nirvana chi and desolation chi? Chapter 920. Ning Fan had been cultivating the Tao for many years. He was no longer the weak cultivator he was in the past. Thus, he had naturally heard quite a lot about the three chi of beginning, nirvana and desolate. The so-called primordial, nirvana, and desolate chi were the three types of chi of origin in the world. They could be swallowed and refined to increase one's cultivation base. They could also be used to cast divine abilities and increase the power of divine abilities to a terrifying level. Among them, the origin chi was of the lowest quality and the desolate chi was of the highest quality. However, even the lowest quality Genesis chi was scarce in the world. Occasionally, an ancient ruin would unearth a strand of Genesis chi, and it would definitely cause immortal emperor-level old monsters to fight for it. I didn't expect an immortal emperor to use his origin energy against me. Judging from the aura of this divine ability, the immortal emperor who summoned this giant ghost should belong to the demon race. Ning Fan's expression became extremely solemn. He already knew that the giant ghost was transformed from Shi Qi. Hence, he did not think that he had the strength to face it head-on. According to Ning Fan's personality, once he knew that he wasn't a match for the giant ghost, he would immediately use his divine ability to escape. However, who would have thought that the candle Bao's spirit that was sealed by Ning Fan would betray him at this moment? As soon as the spirit of the candle Bao flew out of Ning Fan's palm, it immediately turned into a seven-colored rainbow and rushed towards the sound waves released by the gigantic ghost without caring about anything else. It was extremely excited. That sound was as black as ink and as vast as the sea. It was the roar of the giant ghost, relying on the power of the primordial chi. Although this giant ghost was only at the sky-rending realm, its roar was so terrifying that even an immortal emperor would have to temporarily avoid it. However, the candle Bao's Bao spirit did not seem to be afraid of this sound wave at all. When it flew in front of the sound wave, it suddenly shook its body and transformed into the wretched appearance of a hunchbacked old man. It laughed out loud and raised its hand towards the vast sound wave. At the center of the sound wave, tens of thousands of rays of golden light suddenly appeared. The golden light turned into hundreds of millions of ancient demonic characters that suddenly condensed to form an extremely ancient golden mark. The mark was in the shape of a dragon, and demonic chi shot up into the sky. As soon as the mark appeared, the sea of sound dissipated with a bang. Even immortal emperors didn't dare to face this primordial energy sacred art head-on, but it was actually broken by Candle Bao's palm. This old man's previous master was ancestor dragon Zhu Li. On account that this old man had followed him in battle for many years, he gave this old man 3 strands of Genesis energy. These 3 strands of Genesis chi had been refined by the previous master for 10,000 years and he had secretly planted countless marks on them. As long as the imprint is not erased, this origin energy cannot harm this old man. When Lil Fan saw this sound wave, he was so scared that he turned around and ran. What a coward, I am not afraid at all. The candle Bao proudly licked its lips, chuckled and flew towards the giant ghost. The giant ghost was formed from primordial energy, and its movements were emotionless. When it saw the candle Bao flying towards it, it immediately opened its huge mouth and swallowed the candle Bao. This devouring force directly caused cracks to appear in the Tao laws within a radius of 5,000 kilometers. A mere brat dares to use this old man's origin energy. You're courting death. Seeing that the giant ghost wanted to swallow him, Candle Bao's eyes were filled with disdain. His hands continuously moved, instantly forming countless demonic hand seals. Immediately, a scarlet gold dragon-shaped mark appeared on the giant ghost's body. The number of those marks increased and covered the entire body of the giant ghost. As the marks appeared one after another, Candle Bao let out a cold cry and changed his hand seals. Instantly, the giant ghost, which was incomparably arrogant, immediately let out a miserable shriek and its body directly exploded, dispersing into countless strands of mist. Candle Bao then raised his hand and grabbed at the strands of mist. The mist immediately merged with each other and turned into a cloud of mist that was almost transparent. Then, it slowly floated into Candle Bao's hand. Ha! Lil Fan, do you see this? This is one of the 3 strands of Genesis Chi that the previous master had given me. As long as I devour this strand of Genesis Chi. Candle Bao was extremely pleased. He raised his hand and was about to devour this strand of Genesis Chi. His heart was filled with joy. As long as he successfully devours this strand of Genesis Chi, his strength would certainly increase tremendously by borrowing its power. By then, the seal that Ning Fan planted in his body would not be a problem at all. He could break it by just raising his hand. However, would Ning Fan give Candle Bao the chance to devour this strand of Genesis Chi? Freeze. Ning Fan gently raised his hand and pointed at Candle Bao with a finger. Immediately, Candle Bao's entire body became immobilized. He still maintained his posture of devouring the Genesis Chi with a wretched smile on his face. However, the strand of Genesis Chi could no longer enter his mouth. In the past, Ning Fan could only use this technique to freeze Candle Bao by burning his ancestral blood. Today, however, Candle Bao's body had been sealed by Ning Fan's seal. Thus, he was easily frozen by Ning Fan. Heaven freezing technique. Why is he using this technique again? This is bad. This malefic star has actually frozen me. He wants to seize my Genesis Chi. Candle Bao's heart screamed in alarm. At this moment, Ning Fan appeared in front of him like a ghost and took away the Genesis Chi from his hand. Candle Bao's escape plan had ended before it could even begin. This strand of Genesis Chi belongs to me now. Ning Fan glanced at Candle Bao, who could not move at all, and said indifferently. Originally, he was unable to defeat the giant ghost. However, he did not expect that Candle Bao actually had a way to restrain the giant ghost and seize the Genesis Chi that formed its body. Looking at the illusory Genesis Chi in his hand, Ning Fan smiled faintly. It seemed like he had picked up a bargain for nothing. This small lump of Genesis Chi was a treasure that could make immortal emperors envious. On the other side, Candle Bao immediately began to curse loudly when he saw Ning Fan snatching his Genesis Chi. Little Fan, how dare you plot against me? You are really too shameless. If you have the guts, remove the heaven freezing technique and have a fair one-on-one duel with me. As long as you return the Genesis Chi to me, I will only need 3 moves to beat you up like a dog. Little Fan, I'm warning you. Remove the heaven freezing technique now and return the Genesis Chi to me. Then, I can still let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'm going to get angry. Master. I'll still call you Master, alright? Master, please have some pity on me. This Genesis Chi was given to me by my previous master. It belongs to me. You are a respectable person with a high status. You can't steal something from a servant like me. How bad would it sound if word gets out? Just return it to me. Master, you're my biological father, alright? As long as you return the Genesis Chi to me. Ning Fan's eyes darkened. He did not want to talk nonsense with Candle Bao anymore. Of course, he would not return the Genesis Chi to Candle Bao. He raised his hand and pointed at Candle Bao, activating the seal in his body. Candle Bao immediately wailed like a pig being slaughtered. Just now, you seem to be trying to escape. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with killing intent when he looked at Candle Bao. Candle Bao was still wailing. When he suddenly saw the killing intent in Ning Fan's eyes, his heart instantly turned cold. Not good. This malefic star wants to kill me. At this moment, Candle Bao no longer cared about the ownership of the Genesis Chi. He understood that his betrayal this time had angered Ning Fan. If Candle Bao successfully swallowed the Genesis Chi and escaped, he naturally would not need to be afraid of Ning Fan. However, the problem was that his betrayal seemed to have failed. His life was in Ning Fan's hands. In the past, I captured you. The reason why I didn't kill you and destroy you was because you are still useful. Your existence is closely related to the key in the hands of the true Dragon Clan. Therefore, I spared your life. But now, I don't plan to keep you alive. The killing intent in Ning Fan's eyes suddenly skyrocketed, as if he had really decided to kill Candle Bao at this moment. Candle Bao's body immediately trembled. If it wasn't because his body was still restrained by the heaven sealing technique, he really wanted to kowtow to Ning Fan and beg for mercy. Moss. Master. You can't kill me. I'm your little Bao. I'm your loyal servant. I really didn't want to escape just now. When I saw that giant ghost bullying and humiliating Master, I couldn't take it anymore and wanted to help Master subdue the giant ghost. Yes, that's it. Master, that giant ghost's body is made of Genesis Chi. That's a good thing. That trace of Genesis Chi was originally given to me by my previous master. However, I feel that only an outstanding talent like Master is worthy to possess that trace of Genesis Chi. Master, I'll give that trace of Genesis Chi to you. I don't want it anymore. Please do me a favor and spare me this time. Ning Fan remained silent. He stared at Candle Bao coldly. The killing intent in his eyes did not diminish at all. In fact, he just wanted to scare Candle Bao. He did not really intend to kill him. If Candle Bao dies, he would not be able to use those 6 and 7 colored incense arrows anymore. These incense arrows were Ning Fan's greatest reliance in the battle against the 7th era barbaric ancestor. Naturally, he would not kill Candle Bao at this moment. However, Candle Bao had betrayed him after all. It would not do if he did not teach him a lesson. That was why Ning Fan purposely released his killing intent as if he wanted to kill Candle Bao. In the end, it was just to scare Candle Bao and teach him a lesson. I'm finished. This fiend is so stubborn. He really wants to kill me. Previously, he wanted to kill me after he obtained that inferior innate realm Bao spirit. If it wasn't for my quick-wittedness, I would have died. This time, I'm afraid I really can't escape from this calamity. The great joys and sorrows of life came too quickly. Candle Bao was filled with regret now. How could he be so foolish to think that he could escape from Ning Fan's hands with just a trace of Genesis Chi? Ning Fan had so many tricks up his sleeves. It wasn't like he had never seen them before. In the past, he did not have the ability to seal it, but he was still subdued by Ning Fan by burning his ancestral blood. That's right. Ancestral blood. There seems to be a few drops of ancestral blood in this fiend's body. Even if I really devour this trace of Genesis Chi and break the seal, I won't be able to completely refine it within a short period of time. If he goes crazy and burns his ancestral blood, I will still be captured by him again. I can't escape. It turns out that I couldn't escape from this fiend's clutches from the beginning. This fiend is a monster who can build a bridge in the true illusion river. He is the first person to do so since ancient times. Who can be compared to him? If he wants to imprison me, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape even if I run for another billion years. If I don't run, I won't be killed. If I don't get killed, I will have to follow this fiend for the rest of my life. However, what's wrong with following this fiend? With this fiend's potential, his achievements in the future will certainly not be lower than ancestral dragon Zhu Li. If I follow him, I will definitely benefit greatly in the future. Sigh. It's too late to regret now. This fiend really wants to kill me. The more Candle Bao thought about it, the more regretful he felt. The more he thought about it, the more disheartened he became. If the heavens gave him a chance to start over, he would never choose to betray and run away. Looking at Zhu Gong's despairing and regretful expression, Ning Fan's killing intent decreased slightly and he nodded with satisfaction. He had never thought of completely subduing this Bao spirit. This Bao spirit had a rebellious bone at the back of its head which made it difficult to subdue. Ning Fan had already seen this point clearly since a long time ago. If it wasn't because Zhu Gong still had a great use for him, Ning Fan would definitely not keep such a Bao spirit by his side. He would also not tolerate Zhu Gong's betrayal. I originally wouldn't spare you for your betrayal this time. However, you have contributed greatly by helping me kill the barbaric ancestor previously. Now that your contribution has offset your mistake, I will spare your life this time. However, there won't be a next time. Ning Fan said in a deep voice. As soon as Zhu Gong heard that he would not have to die, he was naturally overjoyed. Thank you for sparing my life, Master. I promise that I will never run away again in the future. I will modify it seriously and make a new Bao. Don't worry, Master. From today onwards, Master's enemy will be Zhu Gong's enemy. Where Master's sword points at, Zhu Gong will be the person that Zhu Gong will kill. Master's fart will be the air that Zhu Gong breathes. Master's saliva will be. Enough. I don't like people who talk too much. Ning Fan said with a frown. Yes. Zhu Gong, shut up now. Zhu Gong's heart shuddered. He no longer dared to flatter Ning Fan. He thought to himself that his flattery skills were indeed not good enough. He still had to practice more. This current master was indeed harder to serve than his former master. Seeing that Zhu Gong was obedient, Ning Fan lifted the heaven sealing technique on it with a point of his finger. Immediately, the Bao turned back into the form of a dragon horn longbow and flew back to Ning Fan's hand. Congratulations, Master, for obtaining a trace of origin Qi. By the way, Master might not know that this trace of origin Qi contains the imprints that Little Bao's former master left behind. There are 30 million of them in total. If you don't refine all of them. Zhu Gong said with a smile, trying to curry favor with Ning Fan. I know. Let's talk about the origin Qi later. With my current cultivation level, if I don't refine all of the imprints, I won't be able to use this origin Qi for a while. Ning Fan waved his hand and kept the origin Qi into the profound Yin world, keeping it in his immortal cave. Being in such close contact with it, he could feel the violent energy within this mass of origin Qi. It was not something that he could control at all with his current strength. As soon as the giant ghost died, the second immortal emperor's investigation naturally failed. The sea of clouds in the surroundings also gradually returned to normal. Ning Fan did not continue to stay in this place. He walked along the ancient bluestone path and headed towards the next palace. In front of him was the 21st palace on the 5th floor. With Ning Fan's current strength, it should have been difficult for him to move an inch after entering this palace. However, now that he had summoned so many Joss flame arrows, almost 90% of the aura force of the 21st palace was neutralized by them. The remaining 10% of aura force could no longer hinder Ning Fan's footsteps. In less than half a breath's time, Ning Fan had already rushed out of the 21st palace and was heading upwards at full speed. At the same time, outside the ancient wild region, the clan leader of the True Dragon clan, Ao Qiangu, was glaring angrily at Yao Meng who had failed to cast her technique. Yao Meng lowered her head, feeling extremely nervous. She did not dare to look at the furious clan leader of the True Dragon clan at all. She was groaning inwardly. Not only did she fail to project Ning Fan's true appearance after using her full strength, she even lost the trace of origin Qi that the clan leader of the True Dragon clan had given to her. how am I going to deal with this? All the great emperors of the demon races at the scene were looking at Yao Meng. Some of them were shocked, some of them were surprised, some of them were gloating while some of them were deep in thought. However, none of them had expected that the origin chi would be snatched away. From their point of view, the mysterious person who was being investigated was at most an immortal venerable immortal. Logically speaking, a mere immortal venerable immortal would not have the ability to snatch a treasure from an immortal emperor. Moreover, the treasure was the origin chi. Logically speaking, a immortal venerable immortal would not be able to control the origin chi at all, let alone snatch it. How did that mysterious person snatch the origin chi? Who is this person? Could it be that his cultivation base is not at the immortal venerable immortal realm but higher? Otherwise, why would the origin chi be snatched away? Even the clan leader of the true dragon clan could not understand why the origin chi would be snatched away. He had extracted the origin chi from the candle bow's body. However, he had kept it and never used it. Therefore, he did not know that the origin chi contained the mark of the ancestral dragon Zhuli, which could be easily taken away by the candle bow. Yao Meng, continue to use your divine ability and project the 9 heavens imperial court. As for that mysterious person, you don't have to investigate him. Leave him to Ao Xian and Du Longzi. The clan leader's expression darkened. He took out a golden jade slip and crushed it. At the same time, in the 9 heavens imperial court, Ao Xian and Du Longzi suddenly felt something and were stunned. At this moment, they received an order from the clan leader of the true dragon clan. One of them must go to the lower heavens to investigate everything. If possible, take back the origin chi. The origin chi was the key for immortal emperors to step into the 3rd step. If possible, the clan leader did not want to lose this origin chi. Let me go. Old ancestor Du Longzi's eyes darkened. He did not continue to move forward. Instead, he suddenly turned around and returned to the lower level. His current position was not as advanced as Ao Xian. The two of them worked together. Ao Xian would continue to advance to the top level while he would complete the clan leader's task and head to the lower level. Chapter 921. Currently, immortal venerables were at least on the 7th floor. Currently, old ancestor poisonous dragon was about to reach the 8th floor while Ning Fan was still on the 5th floor. Both of them were too far away from each other. Even with old ancestor poisonous dragon's immortal venerable's cultivation base, it would take him a lot of time to descend from the 7th floor to the 5th floor. In order to complete the clan leader's order, I have no choice but to go to the lower floor. Old ancestor poisonous dragon shook his head and turned towards the direction of the lower floor. Currently, there were a total of 8 immortal venerables in the 9 heavens imperial court, 4 barbaric ancestors, 2 immortal venerables of the demon race and 2 human immortal venerables. Old ancestor poisonous dragon was originally at the 6th place, just below the 4 barbaric ancestors and Ao Xian. When old ancestor poisonous dragon turned around and returned, he concealed his chi, making it almost silent. However, he was still noticed by Lu He and Miao Yen who were behind him. Strange. Why didn't this old man poisonous dragon go up but down instead? Doesn't he want to go to the top floor to fight for the ancient passage? Lu He and Miao Yen were puzzled but they could not figure it out. Thus, they stopped thinking about it and continued to move upwards. When old ancestor poisonous dragon turned around, Ning Fan continued to climb upwards, trying to catch up to the 7th barbaric ancestor and take back the souls of the 1 million barbarians. With the power of the Joss flame arrows, Ning Fan moved forward at full speed. Each palace could only trap him for less than half a breath. When he reached the 52nd palace on the 5th floor, his eyes narrowed slightly as he felt the vast aura force coming from the palace. The 52nd palace is the 496th palace that I have passed through along the way. After 396, it is indeed 496. The aura force in the 52nd palace was a few times stronger than the previous palaces. Even if Ning Fan had the protection of the Joss flame arrows, he still felt his breathing become heavy when he entered the palace. He did not say much. He endured the aura force and walked out of the 52nd palace. It took him 10 breaths in total. After passing through the 52nd palace, his body produced a lot of barbarian blood which was devoured by the Jie blood. The improvement of the Jie blood was negligible, but Ning Fan did not mind it. From the 52nd palace onwards, the aura force of each palace became heavier and heavier. Ning Fan needed 10 breaths to pass through each palace. This speed was under the protection of the Joss flame arrow. Without the protection of the Joss flame arrow, with his current cultivation base, he would definitely be sent flying by the pressure. With his cultivation, it was too difficult for him to ascend to a higher level in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. However, since he had decided to fight against the 7th Berserker ancestor and take back the Berserker's soul, he would not turn back no matter how difficult the journey was. The 53rd Palace, the 54th Palace, the 55th Palace. Ning Fan walked all the way to the 56th palace. The corresponding number of this palace was 500. In this palace, Ning Fan also did not face the 5th damage tribulation. However, he did not mind it at all. The further he went, the harder it was to move forward. After an unknown period of time, he finally walked out of the 111th palace and reached the highest point of the 5th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. This time, not only was the voice of the stone statue not heard, even the teleportation formation that should have appeared did not appear. I can only rely on my own abilities to tear apart the sky and ascend to the 6th floor. Ning Fan suddenly flipped his hand. The memory-severing Dao sword that was glowing with purple chi directly appeared in his hand. He slashed the sword at the sky, creating a gap at the peak of the Sea of Clouds. Then, he leaped into it. After going through a series of turbulent void currents, Ning Fan appeared in the 6th floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. The environment of this floor was completely different from the previous 5 floors. The clouds and mist in the sky were all red. Scarlet lightning bolts kept striking down from the sky. The rumbling sounds were so deafening that it hurt one's eardrums. However, Ning Fan did not have the mood to enjoy the scenery here because as soon as he entered the 6th floor, he was immediately locked on by a vast killing intent. On the platform where he was standing, a purple-haired old man with dragon horns was standing proudly 100 zhang away. It seemed like he had been waiting here for a long time. It was actually old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. You finally arrived at the 6th floor. I've been waiting for a long time. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was originally closing his eyes and pretending to be asleep. As if he wanted to say something to Ning Fan, he slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance. Instantly, his eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. He cried out involuntarily. How could it be you? Could it be that you've seized the primordial chi of the clan leader? Impossible. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon received the clan leader's order to go to the lower floor to find a mysterious immortal venerable and take back his primordial chi. Along the way, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had imagined various scenarios where he would encounter that mysterious immortal venerable. However, he did not expect that the mysterious immortal venerable that the clan leader mentioned was actually Ning Fan. The clan leader could only blame the fact that the projection of Ning Fan was too vague. Thus, the clan leader of the true dragon clan could not see Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance clearly. Since old ancestor Poisonous Dragon received the clan leader's order to rush to the lower floor, it was even more impossible for him to know that the person he was looking for was Ning Fan. Ghost-faced silver-haired. Ghost-faced silver-haired. How could old ancestor Poisonous Dragon forget Ning Fan's appearance? How could he forget it? After the initial shock, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes immediately surged with killing intent. Without saying a word, he directly took out a ruler-type magic treasure that shone with silver light and swung it at Ning Fan's head. As soon as the silver ruler soared into the sky, it immediately multiplied into 10,000. All of a sudden, countless silhouettes of the silver ruler changed into raindrops and fell on Ning Fan's head. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon could not understand how Ning Fan was able to ascend to the 6th floor with his current cultivation base. He also could not understand how Ning Fan became the mysterious immortal venerable that the clan leader mentioned and seized his primordial chi. However, it did not matter to him. After he kills Ning Fan and searches his soul and memories, he would naturally find out everything. That silver ruler was a 12 Nirvana post-celestial Nirvana magic treasure. Its name was Demon Essence Ruler. With Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's immortal venerable cultivation base at full force, only immortal venerables could withstand the attack of this treasure head-on. Not only did this Demon Essence Ruler possess great destructive power, but it also possessed a special ability called bloodline suppression. Any kind of ability that requires the activation of bloodline power could be forcefully interrupted by the Demon Essence Ruler. In order to capture Ning Fan, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had purposely borrowed this treasure from an immortal venerable of the True Dragon clan. In Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes, Ning Fan was just a junior whose cultivation base was around the void-rending realm. In the past, if it wasn't for the two immortal venerables, Lu He and Miao Yan, who had repeatedly intervened, he would have already captured and killed Ning Fan. Even though Ning Fan's cultivation base was not high, there was still something about him that made him wary. What this kid needs to fear the most is the ancestral bloodline of the Fuli race. Back then, he ignited his ancestral blood and took me by surprise, snatching the ancestral bow from my hands. That was the greatest shame of my life. I remember that this child burned a drop of ancestral blood in the past and still had 3 drops of ancestral blood in his body. If that kid goes crazy again today and burns the remaining 3 drops of ancestral blood, I'm afraid that I won't be able to kill him even if I use my full strength. Fortunately, this old man borrowed the Demon Essence Ruler. With this ruler, this child can forget about burning his blood. Old Ancestor Du Long's eyes became more and more ruthless. The way he looked at Ning Fan was like a dead man. From Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's point of view, this Demon Essence Ruler had a great ability that could suppress one's bloodline. If Ning Fan ignites his blood, he would be suppressed in an instant and the process of igniting his blood would be interrupted. If Ning Fan didn't ignite his blood, he wouldn't be able to withstand an attack from a 12 Nirvana magical treasure with his weak cultivation. 12 Nirvana post-celestial treasures. As soon as Ning Fan entered the 6th floor, he was sneakily attacked by Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Although he was slightly surprised, he did not panic at all. Along the way, it was not Ning Fan's first time fighting against an immortal venerate. Without saying a word, he patted his sword pouch. Immediately, 5 rays of sword light flew out from the sword pouch and went against the rain of innumerable feet in the sky. Bang! 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 The 5 rays of sword light were none other than the 5 rain immortal swords that Ning Fan had refined for many years. Among them, the 4-minute swords were only at the 5th Nirvana grade of the post-celestial treasures. Besides, they were already severely damaged in the previous battle. At this moment, when they collided with the rain of innumerable feet, the 4 swords let out a whimper at the same time and were crushed into powder. To cultivators of the Duzhen realm, 5th Nirvana post-celestial treasures were considered as top-notch equipment. However, in front of a 12th Nirvana magic treasure like the Demon Essence Ruler, a 5th Nirvana magic treasure was obviously not powerful enough. Seeing that the 4-minute swords were all destroyed, Ning Fan sighed inwardly. However, he did not say anything and continued to control the last immortal sword with all his might to resist the rain of innumerable feet. The last immortal sword was naturally the separation and reunion sword of the 12th Nirvana grade. With this sword in hand, Ning Fan actually managed to withstand the rain of innumerable feet in just a short period of time. 12th Nirvana Immortal Sword. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon narrowed his eyes and sneered. I didn't expect a junior like you to actually have a magic treasure of the 12th Nirvana grade. Even immortal venerates like me don't have many magic treasures of this grade. Unfortunately, the grade of this treasure is too high for you. With your current cultivation base, I'm afraid you can only exert a portion of the sword's power. I, on the other hand, am different. I can exert 120% of the demon essence ruler's power. Your sword is no match for my treasured ruler. As old ancestor Poisonous Dragon spoke, he suddenly changed his hand seals. The rain of innumerable feet immediately dispersed, revealing the true form of the demon essence ruler. That demon essence ruler suddenly shook its body and turned into a 1,000 zhang large silver demonic dragon. It swallowed the separation and reunion sword in one gulp. From today onwards, this sword belongs to me. Humph. If you still have other magic treasures of the 12th Nirvana grade, just use them all and give them to me. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon smiled coldly with an extremely disdainful expression. Even though he said so, he did not think that Ning Fan still had other magic treasures of the 12th Nirvana grade. It was already rare for an ordinary immortal venerable to have a 12th Nirvana grade immortal treasure. From old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's point of view, Ning Fan was not an ancient immortal venerable. Having a 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure was already very rare. The probability of him having a second one was really not high. As a matter of fact, Ning Fan still had one more 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. In the past, Ning Fan obtained the 3 treasures of Immortal King's 6 desires. Among them, the Desire Liberation Pearl was already destroyed. The Separation and Reunion Sword was refined by Ning Fan into one of the 5 Rain Swords. There was another treasure which was also at the 12th Nirvana grade. It was the Sky-Burning Fan, which could activate corpse fire to hurt others. Only those who possessed the bloodline of corpse devils could use the Sky-Burning Fan. In the past, Ning Fan did not have enough magic power. Thus, he had never used this fan. However, now that his cultivation base had broken through to the mid-true crossing realm and his tribulation blood had also reached the minor accomplishment realm, he could still exert a portion of the Sky-Burning Fan's power. Ning Fan naturally understood that the difference between his cultivation base and old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's was just too huge. Even if they both used 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures, the power he could exert would definitely not be as strong as old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's. Theoretically, he would probably not be able to hurt old ancestor Poisonous Dragon at all if he used the Sky-Burning Fan to attack him. However, as a matter of fact, the Sky-Burning Fan was one of the 3 treasures which made Immortal King 6 Desires famous. Its most powerful aspect was not to hurt others but to trick others. You want to take my magic treasure? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Ning Fan snorted coldly. He flipped his hand and a red light flashed. Then, a huge palm leaf fan which was entirely red appeared in his hand. As soon as the fan appeared, the temperature of heaven and earth immediately rose by a few degrees. Indistinctly, the Tao of fire was flowing on the surface of the fan. Another 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes immediately burned with passion. He even felt a little jealous of Ning Fan who was a junior. He himself only had one 12th Nirvana grade magic treasure. Including the Demon Essence Ruler that he borrowed, he only had 2 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures in total. Ning Fan was just a junior who was not even at the thought fragmentation realm. Yet, he actually had 2 12th Nirvana grade magic treasures. It really made old ancestor Poisonous Dragon feel a little unbalanced. The fiery red palm leaf fan in front of him was obviously not an ordinary item. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart throbbed. As long as he kills Ning Fan, this treasured fan would naturally belong to him. This treasure will also belong to me. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon sneered and pointed at the sky. The demon essence ruler that transformed into a gigantic silver dragon immediately swooped down in Ning Fan's direction. It actually wanted to swallow him along with the fan. Ning Fan's expression was emotionless. He held the candle bow in his left hand and the sky-burning fan in his right. All of his magic power and tribulation sense power flowed into the fan. Suddenly, he raised his hand and waved it at the gigantic silver dragon. As he waved the fan, scarlet flames and smoke immediately engulfed heaven and earth. There were also countless threads of the Tao of fire that tore the vast sky apart. Before the gigantic silver dragon could get close to it, it was suddenly entangled by those threads of the Tao of fire. Its body immediately began to burn and it let out miserable cries. Even though it was shrieking, its body did not suffer much damage. The killing intent in its eyes became more and more ferocious. Obviously, Ning Fan's action had enraged the gigantic silver dragon. Humph. Insignificant tricks. With your cultivation base, you won't be able to unleash the full power of this fan. You won't be able to hurt this dragon. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon said disdainfully. Just as his voice fell, his old eyes suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. He did not know what happened to the gigantic silver dragon. Even though it was not burned by the flames, its body began to rot bit by bit. First, it was the dragon's tail. Then, half of the dragon's body began to rot, emitting a foul stench that soared into the sky. Filthy blood flowed uncontrollably. Under the rotten flesh, even the white bones were exposed. This was the sinister part of the sky-burning fan. The flames that the sky-burning fan shot out were not ordinary immortal flames but corpse flames. To deal with the weak, the sky-burning fan could turn them into ashes with just a single blow. Even if the sky-burning fan could not burn the enemy, it could still trick them a little. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not know the background of the sky-burning fan. For a moment, he naturally could not figure out why the gigantic silver dragon was injured. Ning Fan, however, did not plan to give Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon the chance to think carefully. He raised his hand again and waved at the gigantic silver dragon. This time, the heavily injured dragon was directly turned into ashes, returning to the original form of the demon essence ruler. The separation and reunion sword that was swallowed by the gigantic dragon just now was also seized by Ning Fan. This was the first time Ning Fan managed to gain an advantage from an immortal venerate by relying on his own strength and a little scheming. There's definitely something strange about this fan. Otherwise, with this young man's cultivation base, he certainly won't be able to break the attack of the demon essence ruler. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was secretly shocked. The way he looked at the sky-burning fan became even more greedy, almost as if he was determined to get it. Just as he was about to activate the demon essence ruler to attack Ning Fan again, Ning Fan took the initiative to activate the sky-burning fan and swung it at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Knowing that there was something strange about the sky-burning fan, how could Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon be willing to take the fan's attack head-on? He raised his hand and kept the demon essence ruler back into his sleeve. Then, he suddenly patted the top of his head. The top of his head immediately opened and 7 purple demon lamps flew out, protecting his body. As soon as the fiery smoke from the sky-burning fan approached Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon, the 7 demon lamps immediately emitted purple light at the same time, sweeping away all the fiery smoke. With the protection of these 7 demon lamps, the sky-burning fan could not hurt Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon at all, even with its sneaky abilities. Junior, this 7-star lamp is my only 12th Nirvana magic treasure. It can be used for both offense and defense. With this lamp in hand, your sneaky methods won't be able to hurt me. If you don't have any other methods, you can die now. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon pointed at the 7 demon lamps. Each of the 7 demon lamps immediately shot out a ball of purple flames, turning into a sea of flames that covered the sky and engulfed Ning Fan. At the same time, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was cautiously watching Ning Fan burn his blood. From his point of view, Ning Fan had used 2 types of 12th Nirvana magic treasures consecutively without gaining the upper hand. He had already exhausted all his tricks and there was an 80% chance that he was going to burn his blood and risk his life. As long as this young man burns his blood, I will immediately take out the demon essence ruler and suppress his demon blood. No matter what, I will never give him the chance to burn his blood. Otherwise, once he burns all 3 drops of ancestral blood and has 2/12 nirvana magic treasures in his hands, I may not be his match. Ning Fan looked at the sea of purple flames that covered the sky and took a deep breath. Under old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's puzzled gaze, he kept the separation and reunion sword and the sky-burning fan. The separation and reunion sword could not hurt old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, and the sky-burning fan could not harm him either. Since that was the case, it was meaningless for him to keep them. His greatest reliance was not these 2/12 nirvana immortal treasures at all. It was not from the beginning. Ning Fan tightened his grip on the candle bow in his hand. His eyes suddenly turned sharp. The numerous Joss flame arrows that were hovering around him suddenly shone brightly. Ning Fan was reluctant to use these Joss flame arrows as he wanted to save them for the battle with the 7th generation barbaric ancestor. However, since old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was blocking his way, he had no choice but to use these arrows. Old man Poisonous Dragon, do you remember what I said in the past? Ning Fan's eyes still flickered with cold light. He suddenly raised the candle bow and waved his right hand. 5 6-colored Joss flame arrows appeared and he pulled the bowstring. At the moment when Ning Fan pulled the bowstring, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, who had been calm all along, suddenly had a drastic change in his expression. He actually felt a sense of impending death from the candle bow. Hiss! What kind of arrow is this? It actually has such a terrifying murderous chi. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart was in turmoil. The 6-colored Joss flame arrow was a legendary divine ability of the true dragon clan. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had never seen it before. That was why he did not know that the arrow Ning Fan was going to shoot out was the item that made ancestor Dragon Zhu Li famous. Ancestor Dragon Zhu Li had killed countless ancient experts with his bow alone. He founded the true dragon clan with his own strength. What people respected the most was the usage of the 6-colored Joss flame arrow. The candle bow had the body of a bow spirit. It could condense the Joss flames of slaughter into arrows. However, this bow did not submit to any member of the true dragon clan. No one had ever subdued it before. Therefore, no one had ever used this bow before, and no one had ever condensed a 6-colored Joss flame arrow. All along, the candle bow's spirit had been enshrined in the ancestral soul pond by the members of the true dragon clan. They worshipped them like their old ancestor until Ning Fan took the bow away. All along, the 6-colored Joss flame arrow had been a legend of the true dragon clan. Until one day, the candle bow willingly condensed a 6-colored Joss flame arrow for Ning Fan in order to save its own life. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not know that the arrows circling Ning Fan's body were the famous 6-colored and 7-colored Joss flame arrows in the history of the true dragon clan. Even though he did not know about it, he could sense a sense of impending death from the 5 6-colored Joss flame arrows that were about to leave the bow. Without any hesitation, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon directly withdrew the sea of purple flames that covered the entire sky. He did not plan to use the power of the 7 demon lamps to attack Ning Fan anymore. He randomly chose an ancient bluestone path, turned around and ran towards the direction of the 7th floor. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to leave this place as soon as possible. No matter what kind of arrow Ning Fan shot at him, he must not take it head-on. In the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, there was an extremely strong restrictive power that forbade the space. Even old ancestor Poisonous Dragon could not fly. He could only run on his feet. While he was running, he activated the power of the 7-star demon lamps and the demon essence ruler to protect his body. With a single thought, his entire body was immediately covered with purple dragon scales. He had actually summoned all of the natal dragon scales that he had cultivated for countless years just to defend himself against the attack of the 6-colored Joss flame arrows. You can't escape. At this moment, Ning Fan released the bowstring. 5 six-colored Joss flame arrows emitted ear-piercing whistling sounds and flew towards Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's back. Even though Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had been running for his life, he could not fly right now. How could he outrun the Joss flame arrows? Even though Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had already used 3 layers of defense to protect himself, his entire body was still drenched in cold sweat in an instant. This arrow was too fast. It was so fast that he did not have much time to react at all. He tried to turn around. However, when he had just turned halfway, his body was already engulfed by the 6-colored Joss flame arrows. His eyes immediately flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. "Junior, how dare you? You want to kill me with this arrow? Don't even think about it." Chapter 922. "Junior, how dare you? Don't even think about killing me with this arrow." Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's roar reverberated in the air, but it was soon drowned out by the whistling of the 6-colored arrow. He couldn't see Patriarch Poison Dragon's current situation. 5 6-colored arrows shot forth at the same time, and the light they emitted was far too dazzling. The area within a radius of 1,000 feet seemed to have become a world of auroras. Within the aurora, muffled groans could be heard continuously, followed by a series of loud noises. Bang! When the first loud noise rang out, a silver ruler flew out of the center of the arrow light in a sorry state. It was none other than the demon essence ruler that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon used to protect himself. At this moment, there were many cracks on the demonic origin ruler. It looked like it was unable to block the attacks of the 5 arrows, and it was even injured by the 5 arrows. Bang! With another loud bang, the 7 demonic lanterns flew out from the center of the arrow light. 4 of them were covered in cracks, and the other 3 directly exploded into countless fragments as soon as they flew out. This treasure was Patriarch Poison Dragon's only 12th Nirvana magic treasure, the 7-star lamp. From the looks of it, the 7-star lamp was also unable to block the attacks of the 5 arrows. In fact, 3 of the demon lamps had been destroyed by the 5 arrows. Bang! A third loud bang resounded. This time, it was Ancestor Poisonous Dragon who was directly blasted out from the center of the arrow light, and he landed shakily on the ground. Before he could stabilize himself, he had already spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura instantly weakened. At this moment, Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's purple hair was completely disheveled, his body was covered in blood, and there were fine arrow wounds all over his body. Although these wounds weren't fatal, they weren't light injuries either. However, no matter how wretched Patriarch Poison Dragon was, he was not killed by the 5 arrows in the end and survived. 8 jade talismans circled around him, flashing with golden light. Faint traces of dragon souls could be seen flowing through them. The jade talisman was a life-saving item given to him by the Patriarch. It was called the Dragon Soul Jade Talisman. There were 12 of them, but 4 of them were destroyed by the incense 5 arrows. If it wasn't for the jade talisman given by the Patriarch, this old man's injuries would have been more serious. I might even have lost my life. Patriarch Poisonous Dragon found it hard to calm down. That 6-colored incense fire arrow was indeed terrifying. He glanced at Ning Fan imperceptibly. When he saw that there were still 14 Joss flame arrows circling around Ning Fan's body, the corner of his eyes immediately shrank. He was shocked and fearful. He couldn't even block 5 arrows at once. If the remaining 14 arrows were all shot out, wouldn't he die without a doubt? Moreover, among the remaining 14 Joss flame arrows, there was one that was suffused with a 7-colored cold light. It was clearly different from the other Joss flame arrows. When Patriarch Poisonous Dragon's gaze swept across the incense stick, he actually shuddered. He could vaguely sense that the power contained in this arrow was enough to kill him in one shot. Damn it, how could that demon-faced brat have such a heaven-defying item? Sure enough, even 5 arrows can't kill you in one shot. But what if I shoot 5 more arrows? Seeing that old ancestor poisonous dragon was still alive, Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He raised the candle bow again and shot another 5 arrows. As soon as he saw Ning Fan draw his bow again, old ancestor poisonous dragon was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. Without saying anything, he opened his mouth and spat out a ray of golden light towards the 5 arrows. That golden light was actually the natal dragon pearl that old ancestor poisonous dragon had refined for many years. The dragon pearl was an inner core that was unique to the demon cultivators of the true dragon clan. Only some powerful dragon cultivators could condense it, and it had extraordinary uses. At this moment, the demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp were damaged to varying degrees. Their power was greatly reduced. It was likely that they wouldn't be able to block the attacks of the 5 arrows. Even though he still had 8 dragon soul jade talismans, it was unlikely that they would be able to block the 5 arrows. In order to block Ning Fan's attacks, old ancestor poisonous dragon actually used his natal dragon pearl. He really looked like he was going to risk his life. Bang! As soon as the natal dragon pearl collided with the 5 arrows, a deafening sound was heard. However, it only managed to block the 5 arrows for a moment before it was sent flying backwards. With a cracking sound, it broke into 4 pieces and fell to the ground. As soon as the dragon pearl was broken, old ancestor poisonous dragon's face immediately turned pale. He staggered backwards and his chi became even weaker. Without any hesitation, old ancestor poisonous dragon immediately pointed his finger forward. Immediately, the 8 jade talismans that were coiling around his body flew forward and blocked the 5 arrows, turning into 8 layers of barriers. These 8 layers of barriers had saved old ancestor poisonous dragon once before. However, this time, as the 5 arrows pierced through the 8 layers of barriers, the 8 layers of barriers immediately shattered one after another. Bang! 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 All 8 layers of barriers were penetrated by the 5 arrows. Then, the 8 jade talismans shattered at the same time. At this moment, other than the broken dragon scales on his body, old ancestor poisonous dragon no longer had any form of defense. Seeing that the 5 arrows were still coming at him, old ancestor poisonous dragon made up his mind and activated his divine ability. His hands turned into dragon claws and directly grabbed at the 5 arrows. He actually wanted to block the 5 arrows with his physical body. Chi! 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 What responded to old ancestor poisonous dragon was the sound of sharp blades piercing his flesh. Even a 12th nirvana magic treasure could not block the sharpness of the 6-colored incense fire arrow. Old ancestor poisonous dragon was not a demon cultivator who specialized in cultivating his physical body. Naturally, he could not block the 5 arrows with his dragon claws. His body was directly penetrated by the 5 arrows, leaving 5 hideous bloody holes that were bleeding profusely. There were even burning joss flames on the wounds. One of the wounds even penetrated his dantian, hurting the demon's soul inside. I can't block it. Old ancestor poisonous dragon was unwilling to give up. He felt a sweetness in his throat and coughed out another large mouthful of blood. His chi became weaker and weaker. When he raised his head, he saw Ning Fan raising the candle bow again and knocking another 5 6-colored arrows. Cold sweat immediately flowed all over his body. This is too much. This ghost-faced brat actually dares to bully me like this just because his incense fire arrow is powerful. If Ning Fan's actual strength was strong enough to suppress old ancestor poisonous dragon, he would not feel so aggrieved. What made old ancestor poisonous dragon feel aggrieved was that Ning Fan's cultivation base was obviously not as high as his. However, Ning Fan had such powerful incense fire arrow in his hand, suppressing him to the point where he could not fight back. He did not even have the time to escape and was about to be shot into a dumpling by Ning Fan again. This time, old ancestor poisonous dragon had lost all of his defensive means. If he is hit by the 5 arrows again, he would either be gravely injured or die. Unfortunately, this place had an extremely strong forbidden force that forbids space. Thus, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon could only run at full speed instead of flying. If he could fly, even if he was no match for Ning Fan, he would still be able to escape with ease. I have already received 10 arrows from this brat. My injuries are extremely severe and my magic treasures are all damaged. Moreover, this brat has yet to use his strongest arrow. If this battle continues, I'm afraid my life will end here. Even if I try to escape, I won't be able to escape from the attack of this arrow. In that case, this is the only way I can barely fly and escape from this place. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's face showed a pained expression as if there was something he could not make a decision on. However, a moment later, his eyes turned ruthless. He circulated his divine ability and opened the top of his head with a palm strike. A ball of purple light flew out from within. With a flash, it actually flew 1,000 zhang away and flew towards the direction of the 7th floor at full speed. That ball of purple light was actually Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul. The human race cultivated their primordial spirit while the demon race cultivated their demon souls. The forbidden force in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court was extremely strong. No cultivator could fly in this place. However, if a cultivator's primordial spirit or demon soul leaves their body, they could still fly in this place. It was just that they could not fly for too long. Unexpectedly, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was afraid of the might of the 7-colored incense fire arrow and actually escaped with his demon soul. Besides, not only did he not bring the demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp, which had lost half of their power, but he also did not bring his physical body or his storage pouch with him. It was not that Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not want to bring these items along with him. It was just that the forbidden force in this place was too strong. With Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's cultivation base at the venerated immortal realm, it was already extremely difficult for his demon soul to fly in this place. If he carries any more items with him, his demon soul would immediately be overwhelmed and fall from the sky. You want to leave? Do you think you can? Ning Fan put down the candle bow. He did not immediately shoot the fire arrow at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Instead, he suddenly raised his right hand and pointed at the direction where Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was escaping. Freeze! A simple word came out from his mouth. Immediately, Ning Fan spurted out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Obviously, he had suffered quite a heavy backlash when he forcefully stopped Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul with his current cultivation base. He was no longer the weak life immortal realm cultivator in the past. He had already become a true immortal of a region. Besides, he even cultivated the Calamity Blood. Just the strength of his minor accomplishment Calamity Blood alone was enough to sweep away all void-shedding realm cultivators. In terms of magic power and calamity sense, he was not any weaker than an early thought fragmentation realm old monster. The difference in cultivation base between him and eternal immortal venerated immortal realm was not as huge as he imagined. At this moment, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon was severely injured. His chi was extremely weak and only his demon soul was escaping. With Ning Fan's cultivation base, it was not difficult for him to stop Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon for a while. As long as Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had the Heaven Sealing technique in his hands, he would not be able to escape even if he could ignore the forbidden force in this place. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon immediately realized that he was forcefully stopped in mid-air by the force of Ning Fan's finger. He could no longer fly forward. Heaven Sealing technique. Oh no! I forgot that this young man knows this technique. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul was stopped in mid-air. His heart was filled with regret and he desperately tried to break free. I've said it before. You won't be able to escape. Killing intent flashed across Ning Fan's eyes. He raised his candle bow and shot an arrow at Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon. This time, he only shot a 6-colored incense arrow. However, At this moment, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, who was severely injured and only had his demon soul left, would probably not be able to withstand this arrow. The moment he broke free from the heaven sealing technique, the six-colored arrow had already reached him. It pierced through old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul. The blazing incense flame of slaughter immediately burned old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's demon soul bit by bit. An immortal venerate of a generation was actually going to die in this place. I actually died in the hands of a junior. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. At this moment, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's heart was filled with a hint of regret. The words that Ning Fan had said to him when he was chasing after Ning Fan in the past emerged in his mind. I will definitely take revenge for what I've done today in the future. That's right. In the past, I used an arrow to kill this young man. Today, this young man is also using an arrow to kill me. The cycle of karma is indeed true. I really regret it. What I regret is that I didn't kill this young man in one go in the past and gave him the chance to devour me. Karma. Those were the last two words that old ancestor Poisonous Dragon uttered before his soul dissipated. After killing old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, Ning Fan was left with 7 six-colored arrows and 1 7-colored arrow. At the same time, he suffered severe injuries which were caused by the backlash of forcefully using the heaven sealing technique. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was not the first immortal venerate Ning Fan had killed. Before this, Ning Fan had already killed a few barbaric ancestors. In terms of battle achievements alone, it was indeed a little scary. However, Ning Fan understood that these battle achievements were built by these 6-colored and 7-colored incense arrows. Without these incense arrows, Ning Fan would not be a match for immortal venerate Eternal Time at all. At most, he could only escape from immortal venerate Eternal Time by relying on the soaring golden light. The incense arrow was not omnipotent. In order to create it, it required a large amount of incense flames of slaughter, and it could only be used to kill specific targets. For example, the incense arrow in Ning Fan's hand was condensed from the incense flames of slaughter of all living beings in the desolate mountain. What it could kill was only the murderers of the desolate mountain. That was all. If old ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not sacrifice the desolate mountain, the incense arrows in Ning Fan's hand would not be able to cause too much damage to him. If old ancestor Poisonous Dragon did not kill Ning Fan with his bow, Ning Fan would not have killed old ancestor Poisonous Dragon many years later. Karma, The enmity of a single arrow in the past has been settled with 11 arrows today. Is this karma? Ning Fan pondered. The higher his cultivation base was, the more he felt that everything in this world was indeed related to karma. After killing old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, Ning Fan suffered severe injuries and lost 11 six-colored incense arrows. However, he also obtained a lot of spoils of war. The golden dragon pearl that was broken into 4 pieces was taken away by Ning Fan. It was the dragon pearl of an immortal venerate demon dragon. It was definitely a supreme treasure. This item could be used to refine treasures or even directly refined and consumed. This dragon pearl contained a lot of demonic power of old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. The demon essence ruler and the 7-star lamp were also taken away by Ning Fan. Both of them were damaged, especially the 7-star lamp. There were only 4 lamps left. However, no matter what, they were both 12 Nirvana magic treasures. Ning Fan could still use them after repairing them in the future. Naturally, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's storage pouch was also taken away by Ning Fan. The storage pouch of Immortal Venerate 10,000 Ancient Immortal Venerate naturally had a lot of good items. However, Ning Fan's eyesight was extremely good. There were not many items that could catch his eye. Among them, there was a jade box which caught Ning Fan's attention. The jade box actually contained an embryonic pill of the Emperor Grade pill. Ning Fan was inwardly shocked. An embryonic pill referred to a semi-finished pill. It had yet to be completely refined and only had a portion of its medicinal power. Even though it was an embryonic pill, it was still an emperor-grade pill. 9 revolution pills were divided into 4 grades: lead grade, silver grade, gold grade and emperor grade. Pills that reached the gold grade were already extremely rare. After all, there were only a few gold core realm pill refinement masters in this world. Pills that reached the emperor grade were even rarer because it was still a problem whether there were any emperor grade pill refinement masters in this world. Some of the emperor grade pills that existed in this world were all excavated from ancient ruins. They were not concocted by the later generations. Therefore, there were only a few emperor grade pills in this world. Naturally, Ning Fan could not recognize this embryonic emperor grade pill. He also did not know what kind of medicinal effect it had. He would have to slowly study it in the future. There were also many types of pills. Some were for recovery, some were for raising one's cultivation base, some were for increasing one's strength, some were for concealing one's body and some were for poison. Before figuring out what the pill was, one must not eat it recklessly. Speaking of which, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon had once set a bounty to hunt me down in the name of the entire True Dragon clan. The reward seemed to be an embryonic emperor grade pill. Could this embryonic pill be the reward of that bounty? Ning Fan thought to himself. In the end, Ning Fan's eyes swept across old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's corpse and kept it, which was still considered intact. This was the corpse of Immortal Venerate 10,000 Ancient Immortal Venerate. Moreover, it was still in good condition. There were only some arrow wounds on its body. Even though it was the corpse of a demon, it still had a great use for him. Ning Fan had taken in quite a number of servants when he entered the desolate land this time. For example, Tumo and Taya. Both of them were once immortal venerables of ancient times. Unfortunately, they had lost their physical bodies. He did not know if this physical body could be possessed by the two of them. If it was possible, they could regain their immortal venerables cultivation base after obtaining their physical bodies. At that time, Ning Fan would have immortal venerables who were at the level of 10,000 ancient immortal venerables as his subordinates. After keeping all the spoils of war, Ning Fan did not immediately proceed forward. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground and consumed a pill to heal his injuries. After his injuries had stabilized, he chose the ancient path and walked towards the first palace on the 6th floor. He had used up too many incense flame arrows to kill old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Now that the number of incense flame arrows that could resist the aura force of the palace was reduced, Ning Fan's speed could not help but become slower. After pondering for a while, he summoned the Separation and Reunion Sword, the Blue Burning Fan, the Demon Essence Ruler and the 7-Star Lamp. They coiled in front of him to share the aura force of the palace. A single 12th Nirvana magic treasure would not be able to share too much of the aura force of the palace. Fortunately, Ning Fan had 4 12th Nirvana magic treasures which allowed him to share a lot of the aura force. Even though the Demon Essence Ruler and the 7-Star Lamp were severely damaged and he had yet to refine them, Ning Fan did not intend to use them in a battle. He just wanted to borrow their magic treasures to share the aura force of the palace. Even if he had yet to refine them, he could still use them reluctantly. With the help of the many magic treasures, Ning Fan advanced forward while withstanding the powerful aura force of the palace. Finally, his speed became slightly faster. However, no matter how fast he walked, it was not as fast as the flow of the baleful chi. After he killed old ancestor Poisonous Dragon, the baleful chi that was generated was extremely massive. After all, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was an ancient immortal venerate. Before Ning Fan could ascend to the 7th floor of the Heavenly Palace, the massive baleful chi had already crossed the sky and floated to the 7th floor. Currently, only 6 combinations Immortal Venerables and Venerables Wonderful Words were left on the 7th floor of the Heavenly Palace. The other Immortal Venerables had already ascended to the 8th floor one after another. At this moment, 6 combinations Immortal Venerables had already reached the 97th palace of the 7th floor. He was not far away from entering the 8th floor. Just as he was slowly breaking through the 98th palace, he suddenly sensed the baleful qi that was rushing towards him. His heart was instantly filled with shock. Hiss! Old man Poisonous Dragon is actually dead. Who killed him? As an immortal venerables of the human race, he was old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's mortal enemy. Naturally, he would not feel pity for old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's death. However, 6 combinations immortal venerables could not imagine who had the ability to kill old ancestor Poisonous Dragon in this ancient region where the strongest cultivators were just a few immortal venerables. He believed that he might be able to suppress old ancestor Poisonous Dragon with his cultivation base in a fair fight. However, it was impossible for him to kill him. Even when he joined forces with Miao Yan in the past, they still failed to kill old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. They could only injure him. The cultivator who killed old ancestor Poisonous Dragon seems to have some terrifying means. I wonder who it is. Wait. This baleful qi, all of a sudden, 6 combinations immortal venerable's expression changed drastically. He had sensed a trace of another person's qi from this massive baleful qi. That qi belonged to Ning Fan. The commotion he caused when he killed old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was too great. It was inevitable for Ning Fan to leave some of his qi behind. As the baleful qi flowed, it was sensed by 6 combinations immortal venerables. Huge waves surged in 6 combinations immortal venerable's heart. He cried out involuntarily. The one who killed Poisonous Dragon is actually that Zhao Jian. How is this possible? I can't believe he actually has such capabilities. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.